This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon and welcome to the afternoon sunset safari here from Djuma Private Game Reserve, part of the Sabi Sand Game Reserve, part of the Greater Kruger National Park. My name is James Henry. On Craig we have cameraman Bat. You sort of understand what I meant by that. On camera we have Craig. We began with that glorious tree. Well, of course we couldn't find an animal. That's why we started on that glorious tree. I must tell you that we had spring yesterday. It lasted exactly 12 hours and it's now summer again. So it's 32 degrees Celsius, 89 degrees Fahrenheit. Something of a rude warming we've experienced today. Fire warnings all over the place, all sorts of consternation at the heat being thrown up. And just as quickly as we were complaining about the heat, cold and bitterness of the winter, so too we're now complaining about the heat. Please do talk to us using the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter or the chat stream on YouTube. We have got Tristan also out this afternoon. He would love to have your comments and questions, also your insults. He particularly loves to be insulted, so if you'd like to have a go at him. And I think we may have one or two joining us from the Mara at some stage. I'm not sure exactly what's happening that side. Now, we are heading towards Gallagher Pan, which is a little waterhole very close to camp, because there was the sound of distressed barking. Now, you may think to yourself, what could be barking out here? Do they have dogs? And I would say, yes, we do have dogs, but it wasn't dogs that were barking. It was kudu or bushbuck or nyala. Most likely bushbuck or nyala, and they were barking, of course, because they'd seen some sort of a predator that wanted to predate upon them. And so now we must go and find said predator, who has probably gone for a drink of water and subsequently absconded into a shady spot. And so that is what we are looking for now. Alrighty, while we look for this predator sitting in the shade, let us go across to Tristan Dix, who is probably going to clean the nest cam now.
I am at the nest cam, and there's a very good reason that I am here, which I'll get into fairly shortly. But as James mentioned, my name is Tristan. On camera, I have got David today, which is always wonderful to be with David. Now, earlier today, our nest cam was a very, very busy area. There was a whole bunch of ellies that were around, and they've made an absolute mess of our lenses on our nest cam. And so it is that time of the day where one needs to go wading in to go and clean. So I've got my tools and my utensils. I've taken my shoes off, and so please excuse my ranger tan and my white feet. I'm going to look like a white-footed human as we go, and we're going to go wading in and try and see if we can just give this nest cam a little bit of a clean. Now, Conrad said to me that one camera in particular is going to be probably needing most of the thing. Now, also need to be careful of thorns, which is not ideal, so we'll just kind of wade through those. But the one that's probably the worst off is this one right on the edge over here. It's covered in mud at the moment. It really looks as though the ellies had a wonderful time of it. I wish I could actually show you what this looks like. It is pretty much just mud from top to bottom. So we're going to give that a little spray and a clean so that nest cam is much cleaner than it used to be. So we'll just do that and just give the little lens a wipe, make sure that it's perfectly clean. We'll have to get FC to report back on how good a job we're doing. Now, it seems as though the mud doesn't really want to come off, actually. This better be the cleanest lens you've ever seen, and there better be no terrapins that are going to nip me on the toe, because that won't be so pleasant either. Right, that's one nest cam done. Now I've just got two more to do. In fact, this one is actually okay. This one didn't bear the brunt of the ellies playing. The brunt of the ellies playing was actually this one over here. So we just need to quickly spray this one, and then we're going to get going with our actual afternoon of doing proper game drive. So for now, it was just a little cleaning exercise that I needed to do quickly. So hello to all of you on the dam cam as well that are watching this process and thinking, why is there some strange person wading around in the pan? Well, this is the length that we go to in order to make sure that you guys have the best view of all of the animals that we have out here. Alright, Ellies, Now next time, don't aim for the camera. By the end of this week, if it stays hot like it has been, these cameras are going to be brown, 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 and no longer white, which will be absolutely perfect. So Conrad doesn't have to worry about them standing out too much. Right, back we go. Quick little jog to get into the vehicle because I'm pretty sure that Faith does want to talk to me. Now we're going to have to move shoes out the way because my feet are all full of sand, so we don't... Thanks, Davy. How's it looking there? Did FC give us a report back? No, nothing from FC even. Oh, okay, I see how it is. We risk our lives and our toes for terrapins for nothing. Sorry, what was that, Faith? It'll do for now. Okay, fine. So I'm not the greatest of lens cleaners. Okay, I see how this works. That's the last time I go and do the nest cam. I'm going to send the FC girls next time to go wading around in terrapin-infested waters where one's toes are in danger from being chomped. Car probably, but you know, I mean there could be. It's pumped water, so it's pretty fresh actually. It looks rather nasty, but it's actually quite fresh, that water. It's pumped up every single day from a borehole, and so the animals come and drink. And yes, I'm pretty sure a few Ellies dropped a number of boluses or balls of dung in there during the course of today, but it's okay. It's just grass at the end of the day and not going to hurt me too much. There could be some other little waterborne diseases like bilharzia that could be in there. I don't know. I've waded through much worse water than that. It's not the most vile I've gone through. I've gone through muddy, stagnant ponds at times, and that, when you smell the mud and it smells like rotting flesh, then you know you're in a bad place. That was absolutely positively quite fun, and given that it's quite warm today, my toes actually feel quite good about life. They are nice and cool now, which is absolutely perfect. Good, now we're going to carry on. We're going to go see if we can find Hosana from where we left him this morning. While we do that, let's send you back across to James, who I think is investigating a different pan on the other side of the camp.
Yes, I am investigating a different pan, but it may be that the same animal that Tristan is looking for was the one that was causing the consternation amongst the nyalas and bushbuck around here. We haven't had any luck yet. We did go past a road maintenance team that had not seen any leopards. So we will keep on our search. We haven't seen anything just yet. It is, of course, relatively warm, and so you'll find most of the animals with any self-respect are hiding in some shade. So we're going to depend largely on the conversation generated by you over the next hour or so while it cools down, and then hopefully we will have a little bit more in the way of animal action, because I can assure you that if we do find a predator, that predator is not going to be doing the Charleston. Byron, yes we do. We get both in theory. I've seen serval here a few times. I think all of us have. One caracal has been seen while I've been here, and so they are not common at all. They are common in some parts of South Africa, but over here, no, not many caracals at all. But yes, we do get them in theory. I've seen one caracal in the Lowveld here. So where I used to work up at a place called Ngala, which is about 100 k's north of where we are now, I saw one there once in 5 years of working there. What we'll do is pop down to the old Hyena Den and see if anything's turned up there. I've yet to see anything turn up there, I must be honest with you. That nest cam, though, is perfectly positioned. We did some great stuff today. We had 2 very nice elephant sightings from the nest cam, which was great fun. In one, there was a baby lying down right in front of it in the mud, frolicking about. Now, this is impossible for me to answer because I cannot hear the name, and B, I cannot hear the question. This is what I got. I got Kite K09, do we have nest cams in bold in the Mara? I don't think I heard it correctly. Faith, can we have it again? Lynx? with all Nest cams installed. I don't think we have links with all... Oh, I see, right, internet links. Okay, good, yes, we do. You can go to wildearth.tv and you can find our Nest Cam feed over there. So go to wildearth.tv and you'll find our Nest Cam feed. I'm not sure actually what it looks like on the website. I'm not sure if it is all three of them or if it's one, or I'm not sure. We've got 3 positioned around the pan, and we sort of use each one dependent on what's going there. I got it now, thank you. My brain's a little slow with the sudden onset of summer. It really is quite astonishing, and I told you it would happen. I said halfway through this month we would have the 12 hours of spring followed closely by the onset of summer immediately. That's exactly what happened yesterday. 12 hours of spring followed by summer. Righty, we're going to go down through this slightly difficult area. While we do that, Tristan is also looking for predators, predating upon prey.
Well, yes, hopefully predating upon prey, or have already predated and are now just sitting with their prey animal. That would be ideal, because sometimes watching prey being predated upon is not the nicest thing to see, and something that you don't always want to actually witness. It's quite nice when you rather just come there and it's already all kind of done for you, and you don't have to worry too much. But so far no sign of Hosana coming out. I know there were some alarm calls just north of the camp, which James is investigating at the moment, and I wonder if maybe Hosana didn't do a massive loop from where we left him this morning back towards the camp. This is where we had him, just off on my right hand side. In fact, just inside here was the last time I saw him. And so what I want to do is I'm just driving this Gari Cutline area to see if his tracks come out from this drainage onto the road, and then maybe along that fire break or across this into this block and then towards where James may be. If that's the case, then James is on a good wicket for Hosana, and I'll carry on and try and see what else I can find. If he doesn't come this way, I have a funny feeling he might have gone towards Buffelshoek Dam, so I'll go and check Buffelshoek Dam, and maybe there's another leopard then lurking around on that side. So far no sign though of him coming out, and this is quite an easy road to see tracks, which would be quite nice to be able to find him. Now, sorry Faith, if you can just repeat the name for me. It's quite blustery out here, so it's difficult to hear what's going on. I have to listen now and concentrate. Herb. So Herb, who is a new viewer to Safari Live. Well, welcome to the Addiction, Herb. It hopefully will be a long stint of you joining us on our safaris, and you want to know about all the dead trees that we have in this area. So you'll notice there's many trees that don't have leaves. Some of them are not dead, Herb. Some of these are just trees that have lost their leaves for the winter period. We're right in the depth of our winter at the moment, and we will be starting to ease off into summer now, and a lot of those trees will then get their leaves again and be able to kind of look a little bit healthier than what they are now. Some of the other trees though, so like the tree that was way in the distance that David showed you, so that one all the way over there, that tree is actually dead. It is no longer alive, and what's probably happened there is elephants might be to blame. So you see how there is the dark bark of the tree, and then there's a lighter section there. Now that lighter section is not covered by bark, and what's happened is an elephant has come along and it has ring barked that tree. So it's used its tusk to pull off bark, and it's taken away the cambium layer, which is the transport system for this plant from its leaves to its roots, which is basically how a plant survives. So without that transport system and that cambium layer around the tree, it's unfortunately not going to survive, and so that's why it dies. And because we've got a very high elephant population in this area, it means that you do get this situation where a lot of these trees are dead and have been killed by ellies. And there's a lot that are still alive, but there are many that have been killed by ellies, so it is quite common to see dead trees. Now, luckily, something that is not dead is these impalas. There's a lot of them, and you can see there's a nice big male that is just shepherding some of the young boys away from his females. It's not really necessary at this time of the year, because Well, most of these females will already be pregnant. None of them are or should theoretically be in heat anymore. But you can see the male is just making sure those young boys know, off you go, down the road. You are not welcome near all the ladies. You've got to go through another year before you will be allowed to mate. And that guy, you can see, has got a big set of horns. So he really is going to be an impressive male for the females if they were to mate. And that's why he's kind of trying to keep these impalas to himself. Bronwyn, yes, animals could theoretically attack us in our vehicle. Luckily, though, we're in an area of the South Africa and in Africa where this has been going on for quite some time. People have been driving around in vehicles like this for quite a long time. You can see that this vehicle is very open. There's no roof, there's no sides. Everything is pretty kind of clear. There you go. David's doing a nice little panning job. So we're quite exposed in this vehicle. And the animals here have learned that we are not a threat to them. So we're not in any way something that's hurting them from these vehicles. So we don't hunt in this area, we don't chase animals off their carcasses, or if they're a predator, we don't chase prey animals like these impalas. And so the animals see us as almost an inanimate object that moves around and doesn't really affect them. Also, in a predator's case, they are not taught to eat us, so we're not seen as a food element. And the only reason that an animal will be aggressive to a vehicle is generally if there's something that it's trying to protect. So if it's something like a elephant's mother that's trying to protect her baby, a elephant bull that's in muss when he's trying to mate with females and he thinks that you're a challenger, then those are situations where we can be in a little bit of danger. The thing is, though, is that with any animal is that if you respect its space and you watch and its body language and you see how it's behaving, it will very clearly warn you that you need to be careful and you're too close. And then if you back away, most of the time you'll be absolutely fine. And then after years and years and years of being in these areas and people doing these kind of things, a lot of the animals here have become quite used to our presence, like these impalas, and you can see that they are just sitting and not doing anything. If I was apt to get out of my car now and walk towards these impalas, it would be a very different reaction, because they are hardwired to know people as predators and a threat, and they'll all bolt off and run away. So a vehicle in their eyes is basically like another animal that's moving through here but is not a predator, and so they're quite tolerant of it, and the predators don't see us as food, and so they allow us to be fairly close as well. That's the best way to basically explain it. And so it's basically years of habituation and of driving around and respecting the animal space that they have now become comfortable with our presence and allow us to be able to view them the way that we have this afternoon, or that we'll continue to do in this afternoon in the years to come. Good. Now, our impalas are still kind of they're looking down towards the drainage line a little bit, so I'm going to go and have a little squiz around, see if maybe Hosana is not lurking in the shade here somewhere. It is quite a warm afternoon, so while I do that, let's send you across to James, who's also snooping about for a spotted cat.
Too late, Tristan. Here's Hosana. He's just come out of the drainage line to the north of Gallagher Pan, and I don't know where he's going. I suspect he might be going for a little drink. And as I said, of course, these predators are not going to be moving around in this weather. They'll always be lying in the shade, and there he is walking around in the full sun. Very nice to see you, old fellow. You gave Tristan the run around this morning, and now thou shalt not do that today. Carol 6, some guys swear blind they can tell the difference between leopard tracks. I'm not one of them. I personally think it's quite difficult. I think someone like Herbert, and if you haven't met, oh look at this, this is beautiful. If you haven't met Herbert, Herbert is our game scout, tracker extraordinaire, naturalist par excellence, and he reckons that sometimes he can tell the difference between different male leopard tracks. I find it very difficult. Hukumuri, for example, interestingly has a hooked third digit on his left foot, apparently, and his hooked third toe on his left foot. I can't see it myself. And this little guy, well, he doesn't have a very big track yet, but it's not small. I mean, if you put it next to Tingana's, you might be able to see a difference, but I wouldn't know the difference. That's magnificent. He's a thirsty little fellow. So Hosanna is not only always a pleasure, he is also the great rescuer of 90% of our shows from the last 3 weeks. His arrival back here and his desire to stay around us has been an absolute revelation, really, because if we hadn't had him, it would have been very quiet on the cat front. The lions haven't been around. His constant killing has managed to bring in his father on numerous occasions. It's brought in Tundi, his sister, more than once. So absolutely, it's been a huge blessing to have him with us. I've just taken an illegal photograph of him. Wasn't that naughty of me? And what's really quite funny here is that there are a whole lot of people in the camp opposite us at Gallagher, and they've got no idea. They're walking in and out of their camp, in and out of their room. I might just give them a shout if you'll hold on. Let's see if they come out again. Pitiki, I think stripes would probably work just as well as spots, you know. I think it just happens that they evolved in a different place from tigers, and I suppose tigers are that much bigger, you know, and possibly spend a little bit more time in slightly more open areas, but I'm not sure that that's true either. So no, I actually couldn't tell you. Why, that's a really interesting question. Now there's a monkey that's going to start alarm calling at this little fellow. You hear him just going ting, ting. Ahoy in Gallagher camp. Do you hear me? I don't think they can hear me, everybody. No, I think they've seen the leopard though. That's good. I think they've seen him. There's also, I'm just going to ask you to move off Hosanna for a second onto that gorgeous golden-breasted bunting. Can you see that, Craig? It's just right on the opposite side of the pan. Beautiful bird with a golden breast. Isn't that lovely? Spectacular stuff. Cool. Okay, let's go back to the leopard. Yes, Angel, it is surrounded by a fence. The fence is largely to keep hippopotami and buffalo out of the camp. It won't really, I mean, if this leopard wanted to get in, he'd just jump over that. But yes, I suppose it does act as a deterrent. Isn't that wonderful? Can you imagine how wonderful it is staying in a camp outside which a leopard was having a drink? Just very special indeed. And he's so chilled, you see, that even if he sees those people there, he's not going to have a worry about them. His ears are flat back. They have been since we saw him, and I wonder, I think he's been eating anything. He doesn't look very full. He doesn't look hungry though either. I remember Tristan saying today that he thought he looked a little bit hungry. Maybe he's had a scrub hair or two during the course of the day. Right, we're going to follow him because he looks to me like he's heading straight back to the direction that he came from, which means maybe he does have something stashed in a bush, and will then no doubt draw his father in for breakfast or lunch. What a stroke of luck that was. We just came round the corner, thought we'd check the pan once more, and there he was. He's slinking back down into the drainage line to the side of the road. All Alrighty, we're going to try and get through this rather difficult thicket over here. Let's go over to the Maasai Mara, where Scott Dyson, I believe, is out exploring.
Hello everyone, welcome on board. My name is Scott and I'm teamed up with James Kaimoe Muredi. Good to have you on board. I've just repositioned the vehicle because I realized I was about to head into an area where I know we would have lost signal. We're in kind of a funny little area going up a hill with quite a thick forest in it. So I've stopped here and I'm just going to let James show you the lie of the land where we currently are. We're kind of midway down the Mara River in the Mara Triangle Reserve in the Maasai Mara in Kenya. You've probably noticed the scenery is very different to down south where you've just come from. And there's the river there, and as James continues to pan to the left, you'll begin to see probably more and more vehicles. There's quite a few vehicles waiting at two main crossing points, and there's quite a few zebra building up there, but it doesn't look like they're going to cross anytime soon. So I've decided to try our luck elsewhere, hence moving on. Taylor was there, so we've got her keeping an eye on the river, and I hope she gets lucky a little bit later on. It really is incredible how much it has dried up here in the last kind of 6 to 8 weeks. I mean, 2 months ago this area was completely green. A lot of the areas were saturated with water. We were getting so much rain, and in a very, very short space of time you'll notice that everything is gold and dry. So that's been quite an interesting thing to witness firsthand. Last year I arrived just in time for the migration, so I didn't get to kind of see the transformation. Hello Fortuna, I think I got your name correct. If not, I do apologize. You would like to know if we have any updates on the river cams. And yes, we do have a few updates, I guess, in that we've got, I think, 3 or 4 operational, but only one of them is the same caliber of the cameras that we had last year. Sadly, all of them have been broken, either by the weather or animals. So it's not the same setup as last year, but we have been doing our best to get as many up and running as possible. But we are so busy focused on the TV series at the moment that we've got kind of all hands on deck doing various things. So I'm not too sure exactly who's going to man the river camera or be able to narrate the crossings. I think James did try and... So some of you may have seen that. There was an action broadcast. I think there was some problem with the audio though. Very good. But I'm hoping in the coming weeks they'll be up and running and you guys will be able to see more updates from the river action. Very good. We will see you a little bit later. For now, we're going to send you back down to Tristan.
Indeed, Scotty, and good to hear Scotty's out and about. It's been a while since I've heard from him, and hopefully he's having a good time up in the Mara. Now, talking about Mara, one of the animals that is most common and most prevalent in that area at the moment is a zebra, and seems to be pretty good here in Djuma too lately. David and I were just discussing that we've been seeing a rather large number of zebras over the last few weeks, and not that any of us are complaining. It's always nice to see these beautiful animals gracing us with their presence, and so quite chuffed that we've got lots of zebras around. Now you can see the stallion strutting his stuff as he walks, also bobbing his head as he goes. It's definitely a strut, that's for sure. Yes, they do, Debbie. They will most certainly alarm call for predators. Please don't ask me to make the alarm call because I absolutely cannot do it. I can't even attempt it. It's something that is just not good. I'm pretty sure that James would be able to do it. So the girls in FC are saying that I need to do it. Honestly, girls, I promise you that I don't even know how to start with it. But they do alarm call, and they alarm call for leopard, lion, cheetah, even potentially maybe wild dogs. I've actually never seen them alarm call for wild dogs, which is interesting. But lions, most certainly, they'll make a lot of noise if they see lions, and even a leopard. But these zebras have got it easy, I must be honest, compared to the zebras up in the Mara, who are chomped at every opportunity by lions and crocodiles and even leopards in the form of the little foals. Here, these zebras very seldom actually get hunted. I can't tell you the last time I saw a zebra carcass. It has been a very, very long time since I've seen a dead zebra in the Sabi Sands. Our lions here tend to target buffalo and wildebeest long before they'll go after a zebra, and so it's not something we see all that often. Whereas their East African counterparts, lions, they love themselves a little stripy breakfast or dinner and will regularly go after zebras. I suppose it's also a indication of what is more common in each area. So here, large herds of buffalo graced the presence of the Sabi Sands fairly regularly before the drought of 2016, and so it was an animal that they hunted quite a lot, and the numbers of zebra are very low in these areas, as I was alluding to earlier, whereas up there a lot more of these guys means that a lot more opportunities to hunt them and a lot more chance to hone their technique. A zebra's not an easy animal to hunt. It's quite clever and it's got very keen eyesight, and that makes it quite tough to actually get a grip with hunting them and the technique to do it. And so our lions here are so used to hunting big burly buffalo that are a little bit fleet-footed, well, not as fleet-footed as these guys, and they sometimes get caught a little bit short by the zebras. But they're a beautiful animal, like I say. I love actually just watching them go about their business. They generally like these kind of sections where there's open clearings and that they're... so Bobby, you obviously know about the McCurdy herdie. So, yes, I suppose we missed them all too. It would be interesting to know if any of the members of this herd or any zebras that we've been seeing are part of the McCurdy herdie. It would be difficult to know these days because it's been so long since they've been on quarantine that I doubt that they'll be as relaxed with us on foot as that herd was by the time they got kind of chased off by the lions. So I'm not sure. I mean, maybe we are seeing the McCurdy herdie again, but there's definitely no zebras that are spending an awful lot of time on quarantine. It seems as though there's only the wildebeest herd that is there regularly, and every now and then 3 stallions that we see on the open area. But maybe the McCurdy herdie will arrive back. Do we know any members of the McCurdy herdie? Maybe there's certain members that we can recognize. Right, from one iconic, beautiful, patterned animal to another, and no, I don't mean James, I'm talking about the ever-beautiful little chief.
Well, there is the beautiful little chief being rack-focused to as we speak by batters, and he has gone to sleep as predicted in the shade. There is absolutely no way we'd ever have spotted him here if we'd driven past just 5 minutes later. He is behind a bush, invisible from the road, and invisible unless you are pretty much where we are sitting, and we're sitting no more than 5 meters from him, and that's about 18 feet or so. So I'm just going to speak quite quietly. I often wonder if they are affected by the sounds of our voices. I'm 99% sure that Thandi, for example, who is his grumpy sister, is absolutely affected by our voices. She certainly seems to react in a negative fashion when we speak too loudly around her. And so I'm going to attempt to just speak a little more gently around leopards from now on when they're asleep, in the same way that I like it when my neighbours speak gently when I'm trying to sleep myself. David, it depends very much on how much personal hygiene I've been engaging in. At the moment, what they can probably smell is Protex soap mixed in with a little bit of oil from the car, some gasoline, some brake fluid and a little bit of clutch fluid, combined with some washing detergent and a bit of Craig's very fine aftershave lotion. Yes, there is no way that they can't smell us. They have extremely sensitive noses. I think, however, interestingly, that the vehicle masks our human scent, as does our propensity to shower with soap and that sort of thing. Well, the merciful propensity of most of us. Some people don't engage in much soap and showering, and that's, of course, to the detriment of their fellow human beings. But that would be pretty obvious as a smell to this leopard. And I think that the combined smell of the car and our sort of hygienic smells are relatively unintimidating to him. So there's no question that animals smell human being and they are intimidated by human being. And although he sees us in this vehicle, or I don't know exactly how he sees us in this vehicle, he certainly doesn't see us in the same threatening way as he sees us when we're on foot. I think that that effect, and the effect of the vehicle and the smell of the vehicle and our hygiene, makes the effect of our smell that much less on him. Same does not apply for elephants. It's quite interesting. When you're with an elephant herd and the wind switches and it blows towards them, they definitely pick up something that they don't like. And even if it's just a little twitching of the trunk to sort of smell towards you, it's very definite that they pick up a scent that they're not very happy with. But the leopards, no, they don't have the same effect, which is interesting. Well, Emily, new viewer, lovely to have you with us. Thank you for your question. Thank you for your time. You will find that the little chief is very much related to Hosana, 100% related, in fact, so much so that they are exactly the same individual. So Hosana means little chief, Emily, and so Hosana and little chief, we just use them interchangeably. This is Hosana, this is the little chief that we're looking at here. His mother, of course, was Kurula, the great queen of Djuma, passed on, now some 16, almost 17 months since. And her daughter, her first daughter, Tandi, has assumed the mantle of Queen of Djuma, taken up her old territory, quite interestingly, which fit the story quite nicely. I don't think she knows she's the queen, but that's what some of us like to call her. I know there were some people who said on social media the other day that they didn't like the fact that we were calling Tandi the queen, that only Karula could be the queen and there would be no other queen ever. Well, that's okay too. That's absolutely fine. It's quite fun to have these opinions on animals, especially as it doesn't really affect the animals. Angie, no sign of Tingana, but his tracks do go down towards where I had Shidulu yesterday, which were sort of central western parts of Djuma. I think Tristan might do a turn past there a little bit later and see if he can't find those tracks. I think Shidulu had a kill yesterday. She didn't, as far as I could tell, emerge from the block that I saw her in yesterday morning, and Tingana has been the world's finest scavenger over the last 4 or 5 weeks. And I wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if he didn't pick up the scent of a kill on the wind sometime during the evening yesterday and perhaps head off towards where Shidulu had a kill. So I think that's where he is. And certainly he's in very fine state. He is in a very fine state. Well, this cat ain't going nowhere for quite some time, so I think we'll stay here. I don't think there's any reason for us to leave. Having some nice chat about him. And it's not like driving around in this sort of heat is going to help matters much. And I'm sure as we sit here, a couple of birds will come past. Actually an excellent birding position. Right, poor old Tristan. He is driving around in the heat.
I am, and I'm not. I think actually driving around is better than being stationary in the heat this afternoon, because the sun is blazing down, and so if I was sitting in the sun it would be a lot hotter than driving with a little breeze blowing in my face. So I'm quite happy to be driving at this stage. But since James found Hosana, which has kind of changed my thinking for the afternoon, is that he's quite right in that I'll head towards where Tingana's tracks were and possibly where Shidulu. I don't know where James left Shidulu, but I'm roughly guessing it's a similar area. So we're going to go just scratch around and see Maybe Shadulu's on a kill, maybe the two of them have met up, you never know. But also what I remembered from this morning, which I had completely forgotten about until about 2 minutes ago, was that the wild dogs were not very far from our boundary either, and so that would make a perfect late afternoon surprise. So I've actually got lots of things in the west, so I'll head in that direction a little bit later. While it's still kind of hot and very, very warm, I'm going to head towards the Mulwati via Gallagher Pan. Of course, there's no water at Gallagher Pan at all, but it's an area that Thandi and Columba like to hang about in, so it seems worth just checking and seeing if they're not in this area somewhere. So we're going to do that and then round to the Mulwati and south and see if we can find some elephants in the Mulwati while it's still hot. Gary, well, I would say, I mean, there is a speed limit depending on what you're following, though. If you're following wild dogs, the speed limit tends to go out the window very quickly and you tend to be mobile a lot faster than you should be. But theoretically, the reserve speed limit is 50 kilometers an hour, which is very fast, I can promise you, on one of these dirt roads. I don't have a working speedometer on this vehicle, and so I can't tell you how fast I'm currently going, but if I was going more than 10, it would be quite a lot. In fact, I would say I'm maybe between 10 and 15 is about what I'm doing currently. But normally we would on average do about 20 k's an hour as driving, maybe not even 15 k's an hour. And then, you know, you can go up to 50. A wild dog, though, at full speed will take you over 65 kilometers an hour, and you can try your very best to keep up with a wild dog at full speed, and I can promise you that you will not. But we try and stick to the speed limit as much as possible, and there's a very, very good reason for not driving fast in a game reserve like this, and it's two things. One is that the roads, as you can see, are not beautifully paved, even delightful roads that you can do very big speed on. These are bumpy sand roads, and so one is you're probably going to roll the car if you go too fast. Two, you're going to not have any time to brake, because you're going to brake and you're just going to skid on this loose substrate that is on top of the hard road, and so then you're going to have a bit of a problem. And the main reason is that there's animals that walk around here, and if you're driving like a hooligan, you undoubtedly are going to hit something, and you might hit a few small things which would result in their death, which would be very, very sad, but you would also probably kill yourself at some point, because I can promise you, if you drive your car at 60 kilometers an hour and park it up the rear end of an elephant, you're not going to be coming off very well at all. In fact, you will probably be dead, because if you do not actually kill yourself in the accident, the elephant most certainly will get you after it's had a car parked up its rear. It's not going to be in any good mood at all. So speeding out here is just silly. It's no point, and is only going to end up being dangerous for yourself and the other inhabitants that live out here. So best just to avoid speeding and to drive like I am, like you're driving Miss Daisy. So Matt, another new viewer to join the Safari Live ranks. You're obviously just joined us, and so you wouldn't know when the winter started, but the winter basically, Matt, starts in around May. So the beginning of May, our autumn or fall comes in, and we start to get into the winter months, and slowly but surely we then get into the deeper winter, which is sort of June, July, August, and now we start coming to the end of it. So we have a very short winter period, June, July, August, and then September it starts to become absolutely beautiful, and we have about a 2-week spring, and then we go into the ridiculousness that is summer, where temperatures go to 40 degrees Celsius quite regularly. So it's not very pleasant in the summer months. It can get quite hot, but it's my favorite time of the year. I love summer because it's warm, and well, I don't have to wear about 40 layers like I do in the winter, although it is a very pleasant day today, so I've got actually no basis to form my hatred of winter when you get winter's days like this. But I can assure you, Matt, a few days ago it was rainy, it was cold, and it was thoroughly miserable for a winter's day. So it's, at least, you know, we have a fairly decent weather most of the year, so I can't complain too much. But yeah, winter starts May and ends around June, July, August. We're kind of still into winter and then ends there. So it's not the longest winter in the world, and definitely not the worst winter. Right, well, I'm going to keep going along this area. We're going to try to see if we can find some ellies. Lots of tracks heading towards the Mulawati. So while I go and track down these ellies, see where they've gone, I'm going to send you back across to Scott in the Mara. And I wonder what his plans are for the afternoon, or if he's managed to find anything as yet.
I'm not sure if you guys can see, but I think I've got a bug in my eye. Ow. Welcome back, everyone. I'm told you have been discussing the seasons with Tristan down in Djuma. Here on the equator in Kenya, we don't really experience too much of a change in seasons, and the kind of temperature and weather conditions are pretty similar throughout the year, outside of the kind of rainy seasons. Now, very good. What I would like to do is show you this map, and just to kind of get you orientated, for those of you who are new to this part of the world, we operate in the Maasai Mara National Reserve, also known as the Triangle, this pink area. Across the river from us is the National Reserve. Over here, we did spend time here last year, but now we've focused our efforts and concentration here, which I really think has actually helped us. Now I'm just going to page over to get you a more zoomed in version of the Mara Triangle where we operate. Where you were with me earlier, I was over here, and we've moved all the way up to just past here now. It's probably about 10 miles, and this general area that we're in over here has got a lot of wildebeest in. This is kind of where most of the wildebeest that have pushed in on the western side of the Mara River have moved to. So I'm hoping to show you some wildebeest, as well as hopefully the sausage tree pride of lions. Brent had their tracks somewhere here this morning, so that's where I'm going to be heading, which is in and around the Salt Lick area. The last place the Owino pride was seen was here, but interestingly, both the Owinos and the sausages, who were both in these areas yesterday, were all the way over here for quite a long time as the migration arrived, and it was interesting to see them that far out of both of their territories. So that is that. I thought I'd just give you an idea on what's going on with where we are. And for those of you who are new to Safari Live, just give you a better idea of how the Maasai Mara works. Sorry, Rosh, I didn't copy your question there. The radio comms was a little bit shaky from Faith, who is directing the show, but she'll feed it through to me again, and hopefully I will hear exactly what it is. Oh, Wines are wearing goggles like Brent. Roshni, those goggles are horrendous. They also get quite hot because they're closed. What would be nice would be clear glasses like these, just with a clear lens or something like that. But yeah, the ones that were sent from Nairobi were pretty funky, so I haven't taken the plunge. But yeah, you're right, Roshni. Oh, there it is. I got it out finally. Let's see what it is. I tried to show it to you in the beginning. I don't know if you could see, but shame, that poor little bug on my pinky finger drowned in my eyeball. Not a good way to go. I apologize. I'll say a quick prayer. Humming prayer. Okay, very good. We can now send it off to bug heaven. Goodbye. Very good. There's a few zebra. James can just show you kind of briefly as we skirt along here. There's a few zebra and wildebeest, so we're beginning to get into the right area, and hopefully there will be just more and more of these as we head further down this road. So we'll call you back when we get to more of these beasts, and in the meantime we'll be sending you down to James.
We have not moved. The cat has not moved. Craig was just saying to me, whenever it's cold, we tell people that these cats are sleeping because it's cold. And whenever it's too hot, we say the cats are sleeping because it's so hot. And I suddenly realized that was, of course, absolutely true. Now we're just trying to help Taxon get a vehicle in here. It's going to be quite interesting. He's got to get a very large car in, and I think probably Hosanna will lift his head eventually. Shame. Guy, the smell of a quarter pounder with chips will wake up a leopard. No, I don't think there's anything necessarily that will smell will wake up a leopard, except if it's the obvious smell of some prey. So, for example, if he smelt a duiker or impala coming on close by on the wind, definitely he'd stick his head up. And I mean, if he smelt or heard the rustling of the bushes for a potential prey species, then he would absolutely react. Now this is quite astonishing, because Taxon knows this cat, and he's parked, he's slightly closer than us even, and Hosanna has not blinked an eyelid. It is quite astonishing. He's the best little cat, this, he really is. He's a very special animal to have around, and when he does eventually go off and set up a territory most likely somewhere else, it's going to be very sad. Kim, no, I don't think he has an upset tummy. All cats will eat grass from time to time, just to line the stomach with a bit of fibre. Helps move things through on a diet that consists purely of meat. So, no, I don't think that he's got an upset tum. But, they will eat grass from time to time. Maybe it was feeling a little bit sore or in need of a bit of a helping hand when it comes to emptying it out. But no, I don't think he feels sick necessarily because of it. He's very, very comfortable. And that panting is just because of the heat. It's not because he's full. But he's not skinny. Tristan said he thought he was looking a little bit skinny this morning. And I mean, I can see why he said that. Because, of course, he's been so fat since he got here. But at the moment, he's not fat at all. But he's certainly not skinny. He's looking in prime condition. He's looking in magnificent condition. You might just be able to hear the clicking away of shutters as people take endless photographs. Linda, this is a good question. It's one that we often talk about. He is vulnerable to a certain extent, but they don't sleep like we do. So I know that bombs can go off outside the room that I'm sleeping in, and I won't wake up from time. Sometimes if I'm in a really deep sleep. Leopards don't sleep like that. No animal out here sleeps like that, except perhaps some lions sometimes, and maybe the odd elephant calf. But these cats don't sleep like that. They have to be able to wake up immediately if they smell something, if they hear something. And so if he were to hear the breaking of a twig behind him, he'd shoot up immediately and become totally awake. So that he's more dozing than he is being fast asleep. He's so familiar with the sound of vehicles that he hasn't bothered to look up. It's not like he didn't hear the vehicle coming in. It's just that he didn't bother to look up because he's so familiar with the sound. He's so familiar with the smells. And that's why he's just lying there, not bothering at all, as people click away, taking pictures of him. He's an extremely popular leopard, this. And as Tristan said the other day, he's becoming one of the most famous cats around, of course. I suppose the comparison was being made with Scarface, the male lion of the Maasai Mara. He's an iconic beast, and everybody knows him, or anybody who's ever been to the Mara wants to see Scarface, the male lion, and we've managed to get him on camera quite a lot. But in terms of leopards, I imagine that this fellow must be one of the most famous leopards there is. He's certainly got more airtime, more screen time than any other leopard I've ever seen or heard of. And so he should. He deserves it. he and his royal lineage. And of course his very confiding nature, his willingness to spend time with us, which is just great. Because if we didn't have this, it really would be a lot duller. Never too late. We are very close by to him. We're only about 5 meters away, and that is about, as I say, multiplied by 3.25, you get to roughly 17 feet or so. And I'll tell you that the person in the back of Taxon's car is about 2.5 meters from him, and he has not looked up at all. He's completely relaxed. Now, the danger here is, of course, that if somebody was to get out of a car, well, then he would react very differently. And nobody is likely to do that. But the danger is that, not that someone's going to get out the car, but the danger is that people will feel like this cat is tame. He's not tame. This is a wild animal. And we really need to remember that. The other day he was walking straight through our staff village. He walked round past Eggsy, the editor's room, between Geraldine and Kirsten's rooms, and then out through the Djuma staff village. And it's very tempting to kind of think of him as being like a sort of family hound, if you like, or family kitty. He ain't that. He's a wild leopard. And, you know, while his comfort around us is very pleasing for now, it's not something that I think is going to last. It's not something we must take for granted or mistake for some kind of tameness, because he's certainly not tame at all. He's a fully wild male leopard with immense power, strength, teeth, claws, and the ability to lose his temper extremely quickly. Right, I'm not sure what Scott is on the hunt for in the Maasai Mara, but of course there's so much to look at in the Maasai Mara that I've no doubt Scott will tell you about something interesting in the Maasai Mara very shortly.
Well, everyone, as you can see, we have come across some better numbers of wildebeest and zebra. What an awesome scene this is. Wasn't too much further down the drag after you recently left us. And, oh, I wonder where that vulture's dropping down to. Oh, just going to another tree. There are so many vultures around at the moment that it's hard to kind of read into seeing them too much unless they're plummeting out of the sky down to the ground. Then you know that they're feeding on a kill. But even then, it's probably being kind of left by predators already. So it's just the excitement of the vultures squabbling over the food. So, oh, there's a nice lappet-faced vulture. The monster of all the vultures out here. These are the biggest. And they've got that distinctive bare head and massive beak. What are you thinking about? What would be interesting to know, and there are some really fascinating studies being done, I know, on vultures getting tagged down in South Africa. Brent shared some fascinating information on some vultures that have been tagged and are getting kind of tracked on their movements, and they're moving thousands and thousands of kilometers. It's astonishing how far they move from one country to the next. One vulture had actually been caught twice and kept alive for the medicine trade, and it's been rescued twice because obviously the people didn't find the radio transmitters. There's some really epic stuff going on with vultures and the way they are being tracked. But what we must know about, or what we must assume about a lot of these vultures, is that they may have traveled thousands of kilometers to cash in on the migration and the bounty that it brings with it. Emily, you would like to know if we kind of... Oh, James has spotted something. What have you found there, James? There were some birds. Oh, there they are, higher, a little bit higher up. I don't know if we're going to hit the roof. There they go. There's some marabou storks catching some nice warm thermals. It's a nice warm afternoon. And off they go. They were on the ground like 2 minutes ago. Now they're all the way high up in the sky. I'd love to be able to float around like them. Imagine. Absolutely awesome. Those are ginormous birds. Their wingspans are massive, around 2.5 meters. So longer than your average door frame that you walk through. It'll give you a good perspective. Now, I completely forgot whose question I was answering, so I apologize, but it was something to do with us keeping track of kind of the numbers of animals out here. We don't, personally, but I guess by us being here, sorry, Emily, by us being here, we kind of through default are doing some research of our own, especially with kind of the lion prides. We find we're getting to know quite a lot about the lions, that there hasn't been a lot of research done on the lions in this area, and they do act very differently to the kind of regular prides and most other wilderness areas, in that they tend to split up and kind of break apart from their original natal prides, the females. So there's lots of splitting and kind of merging that goes on. So we kind of, I guess, helping with working out a better idea of what goes on with the lions. But in terms of the numbers of the migration, it's a very difficult thing to calculate. I don't even know how people do calculate it in the first place. What I can tell you, Emily, is that there is a lot more wildebeest and zebra still on the way. I've got some friends that are busy guiding trips in the northern Serengeti, which is probably, I mean, the border to Tanzania is probably only about 10 miles in a straight line to the south of where we are here, maybe 15, and then you're into the Serengeti. So I've got friends there, and there's lots of wildebeest still steadily making their way north into the Mara, so you will be seeing a lot more. Very good. Well, we're going to keep pushing on in the hope that we're going to find either the Owino pride of lions or the Sausage Tree pride of lions. That is our goal. And while we carry on that quest, we're going to send you back down to Tristan.
Good luck, Scotty D. Hopefully you shall find what you seek and that you will get the Owinos or the sausages. Now, what we've been doing is busy tracking an elephant herd, and you can actually see across the road here how the elephants have crossed and just made this road almost smooth. I drove here this morning, so those tracks are all on top. Pretty sure this is the herd that was on the nest cam that made me clean the nest cam a little bit earlier, and they were coming towards Twin Dams, and it seems as though they have already drank and have disappeared already, because their tracks go straight to Twin Dams and there's no elephant at Twin Dams, which generally will mean that they've already crossed south over our boundary, which is not as ideal as I'd hoped for. I was hoping that I was going to catch them just at the water hole as they were drinking. Oh, Rush, plenty. No, I'm joking. So Egyptian vultures here are, and there is only one in the whole of the Kruger that is being seen. It is incredibly rare to see them, and that one individual is out of its range, so it is not common, and they've been spoilt over the last year because it's stuck around for a long period. Most of the Egyptian vulture sightings that had been recorded in Kruger previously had been quick sightings for a day or two and then gone, but this particular juvenile has actually hung around for quite some time and has done its thing and has now moved off. Well, as far as I last heard, it was somewhere close to the Mozambique boundary, so I don't know if it's making any appearance, but it would be nice if it did make appearance on Djuma, because that would be a huge record for the Sabi Sands. In fact, I don't think there is a recorded case of an Egyptian vulture here in the sands yet, so no Egyptian vultures for us at this stage. Now, what I wanted to show you while I'm here is that we've come to Twin Dams, and I just wanted to show you how dry things are at the moment. So we've been talking about that it's dry. There you can see all the mud on the left side of Twin Dams at the moment. Now, last year when we were here with the leopards pretty much every day, this time in August, spent a lot of time with Tamba and Hosanna at this dam. In fact, like I say, almost daily I was in this area, and this mud was not exposed at all last year, so this gives you an idea of how much drier it is. We really didn't get a good year of rain, and the waterhole itself is being decimated, and as soon as things like elephants come here and they spray themselves and throw water all over the place, and we get hot windy days like this is all going to dry up very quickly. And I would say that this pan is in danger of drying by the end of this winter period. You know, our next rains theoretically should only be in October, end of September, October, and if we get another month of hot windy conditions like this, we're going to really struggle to have water around. And if you think this is bad, you must see Treehouse. Treehouse is also not looking good at all. so never too late. You say that is very dry. It is, isn't it? It's quite astounding when you see it, that it's as dry as that. It's a bit of a shock when you kind of come around the corner and you see just how dry it actually is at the moment. And like I say, if you think that's bad, Treehouse is not looking any better either. Treehouse is being reduced to a small puddle at this rate and really doesn't have much in the way of water in it. We'll go past there now. We might as well do a little dam run and go and check what's happening at Treehouse. Maybe Tinganana is sitting at Treehouse and is having a little rest by the dam. It would be the first leopard I've seen at Treehouse or heard about at Treehouse since I've been back. I don't think I've even tracked a leopard past there in almost 4 weeks of being back on Djuma, which is a massive surprise because this time last year it was one of the roads I would drive every afternoon. It was basically a route I used to go. It was off quarantine to Treehouse Dam, and then along Treehouse I would come towards Weaver's Nest to Twin Dams, and invariably by the time I had done that loop I had found myself a leopard somewhere along there. So it's a very far cry from what we saw last year. Now it seems like the pan in front of camp is where we need to check, and Buffelshoek Dam as well. So things have changed slightly. It's not quite the same system that we had last year, and it'll be interesting to see if maybe as winter pushes on, if Treehouse just gets abandoned. I think there's a reason for it. My initial feeling is that both Treehouse and Twin Dams, the water is not good at the moment. You saw with the elephants actually didn't drink much there. They kind of walked down to that water and it looks like they splashed a bit and then just walked off. They didn't spend any vast amounts of time drinking, otherwise we would have seen a lot of water off on the sides of the banks, which I checked there wasn't. And so it means that the water itself is probably so kind of old and stale and has got dung and all kinds of things in it that it's just no longer tasty for the animals, and that's why they're not drinking there nearly as much, and therefore that's not attracting the predators as much. So I think that's part of the reason. The other reason is that the shake-up in our leopard world as well as our lion world has meant that a lot of the cats are not spending that much time on that section. The only two cats that we used to see on that area after the shake-up was Shadulu and Hukamuri. Now Shadulu has been a lot in the west and Hukamuri hasn't been here at all, and so that's why we've really seen very little around Treehouse Dam. But I'm hoping this afternoon is the day that Tingy is sitting there having a rest in the shade, just watching over the water point. It would be quite nice if that was the case. So, Romit, I'm just stopping quickly before I get into your question. We're just having a little look at Janet Jackson's $1 million mansion that she's got here off, or he, like I say, it has got off of the main road. It's like Hollywood Boulevard in the form of Gowrie Main, lots of vehicles up and down. It really is the hub of this area, and that's why she's here. She's got a good spot, but the clever thing with her is that her whole and her entrance to her house faces away from the dust, so not only does she have a nice view and is right on the main drag, but she doesn't have to deal with the dust too much either, as it comes from all the cars that barrel up and down all over the place. But no sign of Janet Jackson today. Maybe it's a little warm, maybe she's tanning by the pool on the upper floor at the moment, I don't know. Anyway, we're talking about water and about all kinds of things, and Romit, you were asking about water and whether man would get involved in trying to solve the water problem that we have. And I say problem because it's very dry and obviously our dams are drying up, and so we are indirectly already doing it. The fact that we're pumping a pan in front of the camp is providing water for animals daily. Without that little pan would have been dry long ago, and we wouldn't have seen Hosanna there, we wouldn't have seen any of the Ellies that have been around. In fact, it would have just been quite dire. So we are in some respects providing water, and many of the lodges are pumping pans. I know Nkoro's got a pumped pan. Chitwa's obviously a massive dam, so they don't have to worry too much. Simbambili pumps a few pans, Arathusa, Elephant Plains. So there's a few pans that are pumped in this area, and that's all just to try and kind of keep animals with water and try and keep them hydrated. The problem with it is that it's created an unnatural balance. Now, there shouldn't be this much water in this area and shouldn't last this long. So theoretically, these areas should have been quite devoid of game during the winter months, and most of the animals should have gone towards the Sand or Sabi River or those areas. And so water in the Kruger and even in the Sabi Sand is a contentious issue at the moment. And there's all kinds of talks about trying to shut off water points and trying to just get things back to a little bit more normal. But I don't know how long that's going to take. It will probably be quite a while. In the Kruger, they've already implemented it. They've blown the dam walls on I don't know how many different pans, and some massive dams. When we talk about dams, we're talking about ones that are bigger than Chitwa. They've blown the dam walls up and those have now run dry, and it's going to be interesting how that shapes the landscape for all the various animals, and whether or not the drier, more arid species like eland and tessaby and hartebeest start to actually make a resurgence and roam and start to be seen more than what we have seen them over the last few years. It will be very, very interesting. Right, now I'm going to go along towards a tree house dam in the hope that it's going to give us a little gem, and while I do that, let's send you back across to James and the ever so sleepy Hosanna.
Yes, you can see that he has turned exactly 4 degrees in an anti-clockwise direction. It was something else. You can't believe it. Craig nearly leapt out of his skin. He dropped the camera he was looking at. It dropped onto the floor. People next to us started wailing and gnashing their teeth. The action was so extreme. Now things have calmed down again, although you can see them hotting up there with the movement of his left ear. Sure. Did you see it move there? Wait, it'll happen again, everybody. Get ready. It's going to move. There was sure to be a twitch of the left ear. There. Did you see that? My goodness. Oh, and again. Take your screenshots now. Take them quickly. You'll never get an opportunity like this again. The amount of action happening here at this leopard sighting is unfathomable. If you look very carefully at the middle of his body, you can see that his diaphragm is moving up and down, which is resulting in the intake of air into his lungs and the exhalation of that air thereafter. A richer mix of carbon dioxide, of course, on the exhalation, but to see that process working like this in the sun is something to behold. And oh my goodness, he sat up. That's truly astounding. Now he's going to... Oh, he's just going to give himself a little cuddle. Shame. It is so funny how cats like to do that. It does give them the impression of house cats when they hug themselves like that. It makes you want to go and give them a hug, which of course would be a bad idea. Oh, Minamu, I think, is simply the lack of threat. That's why he comes back to Djuma. That's why he has spent so much time here. He's spent a lot of time wandering. He went on to Elephant Plains via Arathusa into the realm of Hukumare, and then down south into Londolozi into the realm of the Anderson Male, and then he sort of headed a little bit further towards Maasai Mara, possibly into his brother's territory. He is known as... What is he known now as? I think it's the Flat Rock Male. No, it's not. This is Kunuma I'm talking about. He's known as something else at Maasai Mara, and James Richard is going to shout it through on Twitter now because I really should know this. Senegal Bushmale. Senegal Bushmale. They would have come into his ambit as well, and then probably found that when he returned up here, suddenly the male leopards in the area didn't want to try and eat him or kill him, and the female that is in this area is Tundi, and of course there's a certain familiarity there. While she's not particularly tolerant of him, he's not that scared of her, and she probably seems quite familiar. And of course this whole area will seem familiar to him from his time as a baby leopard. So I think that's why he's hanging around here. I think the main reason is Tingana's tolerance of him. Tingana has not tried to beat him up or throw him out, although he has stolen a substantial amount of food from him. He hasn't tried to beat him or chase him away. It's quite interesting to watch. We had an astounding sighting with Sydney the other day, where Hosanna, quite against any leopard behaviour I've ever seen, approached Tingana and in fact followed him for quite a distance. Tingana set himself up on a termite mound, and Hosanna approached until Tingana eventually went as if to say, "Go away. Leave me alone." But it wasn't an assault. It wasn't like Tingana got up to chase him away. It was like he was saying, just go off and do your own thing, leave me be, which is not what would happen if he walked into the territory of Hukumori or the Anderson male. He would then almost certainly be actively followed, and if Hukumuri or Anderson found him, I think they'd have a go at him because he's smaller than they are. He's not as heavy yet. He will be probably about the same size as Hukumuri one day, but he's not. He's unlikely to be as big as the Anderson male, but he's definitely not as big or as experienced yet. I would have, until 4 days ago, Sherlock, I would have said I don't know what the function of the hair and the ears is, until Tristan made a very good point. I said to him, isn't it funny how we were looking at pictures of lions, and I said, isn't it interesting how the Mara lions have got bigger ears than the Djuma lions, or the Kruger lions? And he said, yes, but look how hairy they are. And I said, well, yes, exactly, they are very hairy indeed. And I said, why do you think that should be? And Tristan said to me, well, dope, it's because there's so much more wind and dust there. And that is precisely why any of these cats, I think, have got hair in their ears. It's to protect them from the wind and the dust. So it's like a filter. It will catch the dust, hopefully, and help filter out the wind, and in that way make sure that they can look after one of the most precious senses for a lengthy period. So I think much in the same way that we have hairs in our noses, believe it or not, that does actually have a function. I know that it is detestable to most people, that the sight and thought of having a hair inside your nose. Craig's agreeing with me vigorously, and let me tell you, Craig, 10 years' time, I promise you'll be plucking them out. They are there for a purpose. They're there to filter dust from our nasal cavity and pollen even from our sinuses, which of course for many people makes a very miserable time, spring and the summer. His head's up now, everybody, and thousands of rank average photographs being taken by the vehicle next to me. Soon to be thousands of bored family members back home. Anyway, that's why they've got hairs in their ears, I think. Yeah. Let us head across to somebody who never ever takes rank average photographs.
Well, no, that's a lie, James, and you know that just as well as I do, so we can't claim that at all. But anyway, we're sitting with one animal that won't mind the fact that Twin Dams and Treehouse Dam is slowly but surely evaporating before our eyes. There's a little relaxed steenbok that is not moving at all, and I was saying that they won't mind because if you look at Treehouse Dam, well, pretty sorry, isn't it? It's a shadow of its former self. It is drying by centimeters every single day and is really starting to look quite dire. I remember that we had a sighting of Shadow, and we've spoken about this before, drinking from this pan, and where she used to drink, I'll give you an idea. Now, where you look down below where the edge of the water is, now come closer to me, David, so right up against the dam wall. There we go. So there's a branch that is in the water there. Okay. Now, David, I want you to follow the dam wall to your left, and I will tell you when to stop. So have a look at this. This is water, 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 water. Come down more towards me, David. More. Yes, along the dam wall, David. The dam wall is what we parked on. To the left, buddy. You're going right. So more to your left, more. So if we keep going to the left, keep going to the left, keep going to the left, keep going right over there. You see there is a fallen over tree. Now that is where leopards were drinking this time last year. So that gives you an idea of just how far we have changed from where it was. So that fallen over tree is where leopards were drinking this time last year, and that gives you a nice idea. David has gone out very kindly for me. It is a good few meters from the edge of the water now, and so Treehouse is very, very dry. Now I was saying earlier that steenbok don't mind the evaporating water, and there's a reason for that. Is because steenbok, well, they are one of the species that are quite used to not having much water and are actually very good at being able to survive without water. And basically that's because they will get their moisture intake from dew that is on the grass. So in the early winter mornings, they'll go and lick all the water off the grass, and that's how they sustain themselves. So they're actually quite tolerant of very dry conditions. And I know Steve was talking about gemsbok or oryx as a very dry, arid area animal that can cope with no water, and these guys are another one of them that will able to get dew just from whatever settles on the ground, and they can actually then sustain themselves like that. The other ones that are very tolerable of dry condition that we get here, it's not an antelope, but is a scrub hare. So scrub hares very seldom will actually drink water. It's part of the reason why when they defecate and urinate, it actually comes out as a white sort of, it's a fluid, but it is always quite thick, and that white will then dry as a salty crust because of the lack of water that's in their actual urine, which is pretty interesting. So these guys will do okay, even though Treehouse is drying, they will be just fine. Now, I say that Treehouse is not looking good, and that means that there's no sign of Tingana here at all. Yes, never too late. Regularly will animals come to pools in lodges and drink out of them. In fact, there's some lodges where you can get videos of the elephants with their trunks in the pool while people are in there themselves. So animals regularly drink at Simbambili and Chitwa. Chitwa used to be room 11, was Tundi's favorite drinking spot for many years. Mvula used to love it too. He liked room 5 though. He preferred the view at room 5. That was a little bit more over the water and a bit of a better view. So he used to often make kills at room 5 and then shove it up in the tree there and gaze up over the water hole. Room 10 also he didn't mind too much. Room 11 was Tundi. She loved room 11. Tingana and Tumba, they were pretty much anywhere there, as well as Hosana. They went all over. But at Simbambili, Salahesh used to love the swimming pools on the decks. She often used to be drinking out of them. So it does happen quite regularly when it comes to leopards. I've never seen lions drinking out of any of the pools on the decks. Or have I? I actually have once. At Simbambili we had one of the Mangarean sub-adults that jumped onto a deck and drank out of that pool, but it was the only time I've ever seen a lion drinking out of a swimming pool. Otherwise, all the other animals do it. So elephants, regularly, nyala, kudu, giraffe, anything that can actually get to that water will do so. Good, we're going to carry on our search. We're going to go to the last position of where Shadulu was, try and have a little look around there. So, and while I do that, it sounds like Scott is still driving around the Mara, still trying to look for those predators in the form of the Awinias and the sausage tree pride.
Very interesting stuff when it does get dry, and what the animals will do and how they will change their behavior in need to get water. I remember there was a hippo once that tried to get into Inga's swimming pool. Inga's house is one of the places where the Djuma crew stay. Camp's kind of split up into 3 different parts, and I remember Brent was there trying to urge this hippo not to jump into the swimming pool. Thankfully he did, because once the hippo got into the swimming pool, it would have been very tricky to get it out. Now we are driving down what is called the cattle track, and if I stop the car for a second, well, you can even see now all these lots of lines, and those are from the hooves of cattle. Once every 2 weeks they get to walk about 8 miles from the edge of the reserve, the Olololo escarpment, which is in the opposite direction to where we're facing, and they head down towards an area called the Salt Lick, where they get lots of salt. So that's something that the local kind of governments have agreed to, and it's quite a nice plan to allow the local people to still come in and benefit from the Mara. And I don't think it has any negative impacts on things, personally. Anyway, we had tracks of a male lion coming up here, but we want to rather try and keep going and look for tracks of 5 lioness of the sausage tree pride that Brent did have somewhere in this area this morning. So I'm just driving along slowly and checking. Linda, you would like to know if most of the animals out here die of a natural death. And yes, my answer to that is yes. I think 99.9% of animals out here do die of a natural death. There's very little poaching in this area. That would be, I guess, one of the main causes of death outside of natural death. And it's a wonderful, large natural ecosystem, so it seems to be quite well balanced, in my opinion. It can be super harsh, though, Linda. Earlier on, before the drive started this afternoon, while we were making our way kind of towards Taylor, where we started the drive, we came across a zebra that was just lying in a heap, and its one leg had been completely broken. I'm guessing it may have sustained other injuries, because I'm surprised that it was just lying down, kind of giving up, with just a broken leg. I say just a broken leg like it's nothing, but for a wild animal, they're super tough. And they can survive for long periods of time with disabilities like that. But it was an incredibly sad scene. And yeah, certainly natural deaths aren't necessarily better in any way, shape or form in terms of suffering that these animals do have to go through. But I guess, rather that, being nature. But yeah, it must be said that it's often not a very swift death for a lot of the animals out here. Kimberly, you are now interested to know about animals that may be endangered that frequent the Mara. Vultures that we were looking at earlier are critically endangered, various species more than others, but in general, as a population of animals, they are in big trouble. And that's due to a couple of things. Being poisoned many years ago because they were getting caught in the kind of crossfire for other vermin, as well as, sorry, I'm just having a look carefully here for tracks, so excuse me while I do. I can just see hyena and zebra, and I can't see the male lion that was heading up anymore, but yes, other animals on the endangered list. Sorry, I'm battling to multitask here. Cheetah, black rhino. I guess there's kind of different people who equate, and I don't know exactly who to believe when it comes to numbers and what is endangered and critically endangered or semi-endangered or heavily endangered. There's kind of lots of different brackets, but yeah, I guess cheetah, rhino are probably the main ones out here. Those are the ones that come to mind, but I'm sure there's quite a few others, a lot of smaller things, birds, insects, amphibians that may be in trouble as well. Lots of hyena tracks. Matt, thank you for asking this question, because I should have discussed something earlier on, you asking if there's a storm brewing in the distance. And I can't tell whether it's a storm or if it's just a fire that's burning in Tanzania. You can see lots of smoke pluming off the earth there. That is deep into Tanzania. And I'm not sure if that smoke's causing the kind of gloomy haze or if there is any rain. If there is rain down there, it's highly unlikely, Matt, that it's going to make its way towards us. Usually the bad weather comes from the north, and we are now looking straight south. So yeah, usually the weather kind of comes from behind us or to the east. And it's been really dry. I'm surprised how dry it's been for the last few weeks. I remember my first few weeks in the Mara this time last year. There was definitely a lot more rain every now and then, and it seemed a little bit more lush, but maybe it's just my mind playing tricks on me. Very good. We are going to keep scouring for tracks for the sausage tree lioness, and while we do that, we're going to send you back down to Hosanna. Enjoy.
Oh my goodness, look at Hosanna. He has not moved at all since you last saw us. We have... Oh, no, there's some whisker movement. I lie. Look at that. Here we go. Look at those whiskers moving. It's like watching a porcupine in full throttle. Unfortunately, the action has now calmed down, although we're now getting whisker and ear movement indicating the having of a dream. I wonder what he's dreaming. Could he be dreaming of catching a duiker or a scrub hare, or perhaps of happy times when he was able to greet his father with a slightly less than aggressive response? Perhaps he's thinking of the future, of an unusual leopard future that contains him and his daddy lording over a territory together, with his sister and, of course, his sister niece, all safely living in a pride of leopards. Yes, I think that's what he's dreaming, that's what he wants. He's such a social fellow. Anyway, he is still very much fast asleep. And why wouldn't he be? Carl, that's not a very funny joke you're making. You say you wonder if I find sleepy cats or if I put them to sleep. I don't think that's very nice, Carl. I don't think I'm that boring. I personally think that I'm relatively entertaining from time to time. Clearly, you are not of the same opinion, so I suppose I must accept that perhaps I am a little bit boring, Carl, and perhaps I have bored all of these cats to sleep. It is a dreadful thought. It makes my heart sore. It makes me want to leak tears from my eyes, but I must address the evidence at hand here, and yes, although I am talking and trying to be entertaining, the cat is fast asleep. So whether or not there is a causal relationship between my speech and the cat's sleep, well, that is what needs to be investigated. There's certainly a correlation. I am sitting here speaking, the cat is asleep. Now, is that a causal relationship between my speaking and the cat's sleep, or was it simply a correlation that is brought about by a causal, an external causal factor, perhaps the heat of the day and the fact that we are on game drive during the heat of the day, Omkar? Did you think of that before you flung my name into the pavement on Twitter? No, I don't think you did consider that, Omkar. And now everybody's thinking to themselves, maybe that fellow actually is fairly boring. He's, well, if I had to listen to him drone on like this next to me, I'd probably also fall asleep. Anyway, Omkar, the possibility cannot be excluded entirely. It reminds me of a rather amusing sketch I watched yesterday of the two Ronnies, both of whom are now dead. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the two Ronnies. And it was one Ronnie talking to the other, and the other Ronnie was an accountant, and the accountant was extremely boring, and he spoke in a manner like this, and no matter what his boss said to him, he was unable to talk in a manner that was anything less than this, no matter the amazing nature of the subject, the disgusting nature of the subject, or anything else to do with what they were talking. He would speak in a monotone like this, like in them. Most accountants will. We're now going to go across to the Maasai Mara, to somebody who is never boring, somebody who is sitting in a car without a roof on it, somebody who is going to tell us about the river. Goodbye.
Very windy Mara Triangle. Can you see that lion? Oh, she's so beautiful. Look at her. Absolutely regal. Oh my goodness. Now, if you're not sure where she is, you've just got to look on your bottom left-hand screen. And if you stare for long enough, you might just be able to see her. There she is. Oh, she's doing a big yawn as we speak. Anyone seen her yet? No, I'm just joking. There's no lion there. Hashtag got tricked. Hello, everybody. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and sometimes I think I'm a prankster. And on camera with me today is Archie. Now, literally, apparently Faith, who's directing today, said she was caught out. Yes, winning. That's what you call adulting when you're out here on safari. Archie is now, he's done it again. He keeps flipping the monitor, and then I can't help but look at that thing. Anyways, we are sitting here with 3 lions, even though you can't see them right now. One of them is Scarface, and then the other 2 lionesses, I'm not sure. They could either be the lionesses from the Mogoro Pride, or perhaps even from the Paradise Pride. So we've basically been bouncing between Main South. If you were watching on Facebook, you may have seen that awesome little broadcast that we did, which was quite spectacular. And I still can't believe how that zebra got away. So while our lions are flat, I thought I'd quickly give you an update then. So that zebra is actually out of the water and is just sitting not far from the edge of the Mara River. It's pretty much a sitting duck at the moment, even though it's a zebra. And lions, hyenas, something is going to come and take it. Like James said, it does look like there's something wrong with the fetlock, like it has broken it at that joint, which is a pity and will make for obviously very difficult maneuverability, but it'll try to survive. Minamu, now you've stumped me. I haven't got a clue who names the prides in the Mara actually, but I can try and find out. I'll ask around. We have a little look and see if we can see any lions. Is that, you see that gap in the grass there, Arch, from to the right from where that lion was? Yes, that one. I think that's where Scarface is. Is that not? Yeah, I can see his mane. You can actually just see it blowing a little bit. So Mina Moo, I'm going to have to find out for you who names the lions in the Mara. I mean, a lot of these prides have been around for a very, very long time. Well before Safari Live, or Wild Earth, sorry, arrived. So yeah, I'll do some digging. I'll speak to some of the guys who've been working. Actually, do you know who will probably be able to answer that? Is David, our very own David. So I'll have a chat with him over dinner tonight and see what he has to say about that. But for now, you'll just have to ponder. I don't even know if Google has that answer, sadly. And then there are more lions in the grass somewhere. But we're going to sit here and wait around for these lions to do something because they need to catch a zebra or a wildebeest. That needs to happen. But while we put our patience pants on, although we've had them all day, off we go back to Tristan.
Indeed, Taylor, patience pants are always required when watching lions, and well, luckily for you, you're on the banks of the Mara River, and therefore hopefully something will happen. As you can see with us, though, we've found some little trackies in the road that I've given a rather large circle around, and so these are tracks for a male leopard. Now, they're probably from this morning. They look like it, given that I drove over them. Naughty me. Now, it's very seldom that I try and drive over tracks intentionally, but this was on my way home this morning, and I actually didn't see them, if I'm honest, and they're not really that easy to see. So if we have a look here, you'll see that the track is in amongst all of these tire tracks. You can see the kind of ridges of the tire tracks, but they have been squashed smooth. And so here lies the toes in front and then the pad at the back. Now, I know this is for a male leopard just because of the size of this track and the broad nature of it. Very, very rounded. And also the edges of this back pad over here are very rounded. If this was a female track and I put a piece of grass on the edge like this, well, it would be a very sort of straight angle and would match the contour of the grass, so it would come across like that. Whereas if I do it with this one, there's a little rounding section that comes out. So this is for a male, a nice little round track over there, and this would be his front foot. So more than likely Tingana that walked down towards Treehouse Dam. So our suspicions of him coming to Treehouse were correct. It's just that he's not there now, so I want to know where he's gone from here. And unfortunately, though, I did drive over the tracks, which is going to make things a little bit tough. The reason I also know that these are from this morning is that if you have a look here, it's been a windy day, so we've had a lot of wind blowing, but these tracks are very clean. This is very smooth, and if you look in the middle of the track over here, I don't know if you can see that, David, but there is a little branch in the middle of the track, and that is completely squashed inside. Now, given the nature of the wind, I'm going to show you something now. If I take a little piece of grass here and I just put it down on the actual ground, what happens is that this will actually move a little bit as the wind blows, and it's going to basically shift and move, and it's going to create a little disturbance. And on a smooth surface like this, it would have created a little bit of a drag on it from the wind, and it wouldn't be squashed down into the soil like what we see here. So this is definitely from this morning. It squashed this piece of grass right at the back over here on the edge of the track, and then this one in the middle as well. And then it stepped again there and went down the road towards the dam itself. And there are grey go-away birds that are busy squawking and squealing and making little bits of noise around the dam. So I wonder if he didn't find himself a shady spot and is just resting somewhere close by. So I'm going to have a really good look around. Also want to check the road that runs towards Elephant Carcass in case he maybe, just maybe, decided to sleep there. Aubrey's going to help me. He's going to check the southern road from Treehouse, see if there's any sign in that direction, and hopefully, with a bit of luck, we'll be able to find the Duke this afternoon, lounging about somewhere close by. Worth a bash, I think. Nice to see, though. Always good to see leopard tracks. My spirits generally lift very quickly when a leopard track becomes available to my eyes, and makes me a happy lad, that's for sure. Right, now it sounds like Taylor has somehow miraculously cast a spell that has revealed her hidden lion, and so hopefully we'll be able to get a view of it, and she'll kind of stand up out of the grass and give you all a nice show.
Look at this. I don't even know what magic words to shout. Abracadabra is what I should have done, but I was too late. But there's the lioness. See? I promise you there were lions. Now, obviously, you know what I think? Specifically, the Mara Triangle National Reserve must be one of the windiest places I've ever lived in my entire life. I'm from Port Elizabeth, which is the windiest city in South Africa. But my goodness, it doesn't stop blowing here. And it's obviously, I think, annoying the lions a little bit. But with that being said, they have a love-hate relationship, these cats, with the wind, because it does indeed help them when it comes to hunting. And they are just laying here. They haven't actually moved at all. They've just been using that tall grass to sort of shade themselves. And then Scarface got up at one point and he moseyed on over to a tree and he laid there for a little bit throughout the entire day. So that's kind of what we were dealing with. We're not very far from cul-de-sac either. And there's some zebra that went around that way. Mia, now I'm squinting because the sun is in my eyes. No, they're not really any animals that hibernate. So pretty much in, well, I suppose East Africa and also in Southern Africa, the temperature doesn't quite get cold enough for animals to go into permanent hibernation. So they go into sort of temporary states of hibernation, which they sometimes call estivation. So things like, say, terrapins, so the water turtles, some of you may call them turtles, we call them terrapins here in Africa, and they'll actually just go into the mud. Some types of fish do it, some types of catfish, if I'm not mistaken, and can actually do things like that. Frogs will do it too. Tortoises will find little burrows to go into, and then of course the insects also become slightly dormant on the cooler days, but nothing really goes into a permanent state of hibernation out here. So when it's a warm day, you'll see lots of snake tracks on the road. Sometimes you might even see the odd snake out on the road at night trying to keep nice and warm. And then on the cooler days, you just won't really see anything. You won't see any tortoises walking around nibbling on flowers. Not that there are any flowers at this time of the year. That normally comes after some of the rain. But there the lions are lying, hidden. So we've been hoping the entire day that some of the zebras would cross, and some of them did, but not in a spot where we could really see them. But a big herd, which Archie and I have been babysitting for about, I don't know, 2.5 hours. Hey, Archie, actually maybe longer, maybe even longer than that. But they disappeared from us. They went, me shimmy myself. No, now I'm attached to my cable. I have to pull out a little bit. So basically, you can see the tree line over there. That's the Mara River is in between that. And Main North is just on the other side, maybe about a mile away or so. And now those zebra have basically moved up and over the hill, and they've come all the way around. So either later tonight, which Jamie has actually seen some crossings at night, which was quite interesting. Or the other option is that they're going to be waiting for us tomorrow morning. So either way, Archie and I are probably going to come down here first thing to see what happens. Ooh, Fozzie, that is a great question because I better check the time. Let me do the sun thing. I don't know how that works. Anyways, we basically, you won't be able to see it, but directly behind us, so north of us, is the Olololo Escarpment. And I'm going to meander all the way along and head towards almost the Olololo Gate. But we have a secret, sneaky road. Excuse me. If any of you thought that this wasn't live, I feel like that's maybe proved it now. A little sneeze from all the dust. And I should also cough. Anyways, so Fozzie, we live all the way up on the escarpment. Can you see it? A little bit. Is that Archie? That's the wrong escarpment. Archie's just gone. That's what it looks like, but that's not the escarpment. Fine. Archie can't point the camera behind us, unfortunately, but it is big, which is quite large. You can't miss it. It's why it's so easy to navigate in the triangle. So basically from here, me actually answer your question, it would take us about 40 minutes, 35 to 40 minutes, as Archie would say. Depends on who's driving. So 5 minutes for me. Anyways, and if it was Tristan driving, well, he'd probably fall out of the car 6 times before he got back to camp. And well, speaking of Tristan, let's go see what he's up to.
Well, unfortunately for us, Tingana's tracks are going southwards towards Gowrie Main and have probably in all likelihood crossed out and are no longer on our side, which is not ideal at all. So what I'm going to do now is I think I'm going to head towards Mendoza Road and see. Oh goodness, now I'm being told that Taylor's having a go at me about falling out of cars because I drive too fast. Taylor McCurdy. You have no room to talk at all, Miss McCurdy, says the one that falls in mud down aardvark burrows. I'm surprised actually Taylor has not killed herself doing safari parkour as well. I always stress when I see Taylor bounding around like a little clip springer on those rocks because, well, we know what's happened with Taylor before. So Taylor has no room to talk. Yes, I fell out of a car. Not ashamed to admit it. It happened. Well, I am a little ashamed to admit it, but it happened. It's one of those things. But Taylor McCurdy has also not exactly showered herself in glory when it comes to awkward moments in front of a camera. Exactly. Right. Let's now that... This is true. She is clumsy while making it very elegant. This is Taylor's words, by the way, not mine. So, Karma, you back off and don't come and get me again. But Taylor says she is clumsy yet elegant. And I would tend to agree with that. There is elegance in the way that Taylor does do things, but definitely there is also the clumsy factor with Taylor where she trips and falls. And I don't think Taylor's ever actually told anybody about her coffee cup incident. And so I'm going to tell you all about it because it is hilarious. So basically what's happened with Taylor McCurdy, the one day I can't remember what was going on, but Taylor was having something to say about something or other and was kind of going and having a lot of sass, as Taylor McCurdy can have. And so she was walking along and she had made 2 cups of coffee and she went towards her door and she went into her room, and then it was morning meeting time, and so Taylor McCurdy came bounding out.
Hello everybody, I'm sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened to Tristan. I'm sure it wasn't anything that he did that was on purpose at all. We've had to leave Hosanna because lots of other people want to come and see him, and so we've moved out and we are... I hear... Oh no, never mind, sorry. I'm making a mistake on the radio. We're going to go down towards the Vuyatela Dam now, see if there's some elephants approaching there, and if there aren't, we'll head up towards Buffelshoek. I know that Tristan did go up there earlier, I think. And then we might head down to Chitwa, unless he's going to Chitwa. Is he going to Chitwa? Faith will find out if he's going to Chitwa. It's turning into a glorious afternoon. The wind is dropping slightly, or maybe it's not. It's probably because we were in that very shady, pleasant drainage system there with old Hosanna. I thoroughly enjoyed being there, I must say. Anyway, all things good and bad, I suppose, must come to an end. There we are. This is the clearings known as quarantine clearings. Many of you will have heard of these as we drive along, talking about quarantine clearings, romantically named, not Serengeti or Mara clearings or Luar clearings or savannah clearings or anything like that, no, but quarantine clearings. And that is because, of course, it used to be an area where they kept animals in quarantine when they were introducing them to the place. I think sable and wildebeest. Kel 6, it depends which neighbouring properties there are. You must understand that the political machinations of the general area around us make the political machinations of a US presidential race look like child's play, like a picnic. And the landowners around this place, well, they are old families that are involved here, and well, there can be quite a lot of politics. Anyway, we thankfully are not landowners, so we don't have to get involved in any of the politics at all, but we are allowed to go on to Chitwa, that's where we have traversing, and here at Djuma, where the landlords are magnificent hosts to us. Yuri and Pippa Mulman, they own Djuma, and they, well, I really don't think that Wild Earth would be what it is without them, frankly. And so they are wonderful to us. Now, we don't go on to any other reserves around the Sabi Sand because, well, there are traversing agreements and rights that go on, there are whole sorts of complicated agreements that are going on between various landowners and tenants and non-tenants and that sort of thing. Largely, people are or limit the number of vehicles that they're prepared to have on their land, because obviously the more vehicles you have, the less wild the feel is, and so especially if you're running a tourism operation, it's not great to have everybody there. And so that's why it is limited. That's why we don't get to drive absolutely everywhere. Okay. We'll just have a quick look down the riverbed here to see if we don't get lucky with perhaps some nyala resting in the shade. Glorious shady day that it is. If you happen to be in a drainage line, it's not very shady otherwise. What can we see down there, Craig? I see a mongoose. No, it's a squirrel. Fantastic. No, don't worry, it's gone. Let's go back to Taylor, who is still at the river, possibly waiting for Scarface, the most famous lion in all the world, to get up and do something useful. I'm not sure if she is actually with Scarface.
Scarface has put his head back down. He's a really difficult lion to try and get. Oh, no, wait, stop. Everybody hold your horses. Stay with me, everybody. I'm going to hold on. Don't go anywhere. We won't be able to stay long because I don't have a ranger. But you could just listen to the sound of my voice because we might have a crossing. Whee! This is so cool. Stay with me. I'm here. I'm trying to make you all feel comfortable. Hold my hand. No, I'm joking. Don't do that. You would be able to reach. Okay, but the zebra that I was telling you about are now... Yeah! Oh, I'm just going to pick the pace up very quickly. Ferrari, Safari, and the Mara. And then you can hear my brakes. That's such a great sound. Everybody who's just joined us on this live and interactive safari, sorry we don't normally do this, but I'm driving to a crossing for all of you. Paja, yes, all the cars do have names. They do indeed. Woo! Look at this, guys. No one has followed me. What's wrong with the people? Sorry, everybody, stand by. They do. I'm in Chiku, although I think Chiku's been named incorrectly because she has a keychain that's named Cynthia. So I think there's been a mistake. Oh my goodness. Ugh, just doing lots of repositioning. We can only shoot out of one side of the car. Apologize, everyone. This might seem a little bit messy to some of you, but don't you fear. And I'm going to try not drive off into the Mara River. How exciting. Now, as you all know, we are doing a TV show at the moment. Not right now. I'm just jumping up. But I might have to change the sound of my voice at some point. This is very exciting because we have got some things that we need to do. So I do pardon me. Okay, zebra gathering. Look, there's a crocodile. There's a crocodile's just come in. I'm just going to turn the radio down a little bit. Look at that wave. Now this is where the crocs are so good at being ambush predators. They can hold their breaths for exceptionally long periods of time. Oh, look how they've jumped. Look at that. Crocodile waiting. That's a big croc too. There's a couple that live around here. Well, there's actually lots. Maybe the zebra are not going to cross the river. Maybe they're just going to come down to have a drink. Look at that young foal. Very, very nerve-wracking. Staying close right up between the adults. This is so cool. Now this is the big group of zebra we've been watching all day long and we've been waiting for them. I keep wanting to sneeze and it's a disaster, but I'm trying to hold it. Zephyr, you're wishing the zebra good luck. Thank you. It's a tough challenge for them here. The water is exceptionally deep, very, very deep in fact. The zebra's hooves can't touch the bottom. But I don't know if they're going to cross. They might just need one zebra to rally them all in. See, they're very nervous, but they know they've seen that crocodile out of the water and that's what's making them hesitate. But it's quite a big group, quite a big gathering. Now you won't be able to see it, but I can just see dust coming towards us. All the zebra seem, well, I don't know if it's vehicles maybe racing in, but it is quite windy and the dust is being kicked up. Let's see. Look at them all streaming down here. This is my absolute favorite crossing at cul-de-sac. There's always high action here, and it's because of the deep water, the big beach, the big bank that you can see. It allows for nice spots for the crocodiles to rest on, which you'll see shortly. Just behind them, look how many there are. Christy, you said, ugh, shame, that little one. Are you from South Africa by any chance? It's a very South African thing to say. Yes, you know what? It's really tough, but this is it. This is nature. This is might happen. This is one of their favorite crossing points. Look at that crocodile. Look at it going round. Beautiful golden light to go with it. This is the first time we've actually had a crossing with very, very good lighting. It normally happens during the peak of the day when it's super harsh. Oh, be careful. I'm quite interested to see what happens when those zebra, and if those zebra do go into the water. Yeah, look at the crocodiles. Let's watch. I want to just actually see what the crocodiles do at the back. If they're going to be excited and end up, I want to show you how quickly a crocodile can move from the sandy banks and into the water, because it's a frightening speed. Everyone always thinks the crocodile are only fast in the water, but they're not. Here comes another torpedo coming on in, using the current in its favor. Eri, that's exactly it. The crocodiles do move faster than you think they do. It's just getting a bit windy now. I have to turn the radio up a bit. Apologies, everybody. I'm doing squats in the car. I don't know what's going to happen here. It's obviously very, very difficult to try and predict what's about to go on. And I'm so sorry. You know what? Actually, thank you for my ADD. That's all I'm saying. It's because without it, I wouldn't have seen the zebras gathering at cul-de-sac, because I would still be staring at the lions. But you know me, I look around everywhere. I'm never looking where I'm supposed to be looking. Archie always shouts at me for that exact reason. So I shall look at my proper monitor now and focus. They're very unsure. Again, I don't know if they're going to cross. They could just be having a drink. MK, no, you're quite right. They're massive crocodiles. Like, there's some really, really big ones in here. And that's one of the reasons why it's my favorite, because obviously the crocodiles prefer certain types of areas in terms of resting. You're not going to see a lot of crocodiles on a bank that's filled with rocks. You will typically see them on the beach. I always joke and call this the beach, because there's always lots of birds around, there's always lots of animals, and then the crocodiles like to lay out on it. A perfect tanning spot. Nah, I don't know if we're going to get a crossing here. Wow. Crazy. Oh, look at the baby hippo. Sorry, I've just seen something that's really quite sweet. Now, with crossings, it's difficult to say. Typically, the stallion normally leads the way with most things, especially when it comes to going down towards the water's edge. So yes, but remember, this is not just one family group. You might be able to hear them. It's very windy, but they're very nervous. One of them will decide to come up, although I've also seen mares jumping straight on in. So I suppose it's whoever is feeling brave in that moment. Is that a crocodile? That's a big crocodile. Careful, little baby hippo. And here the hippos like to get involved as well. It's quite spectacular. The few crocodile sightings we've had where they've been tearing into the zebra, it's crazy how the crocodiles and the hippos interact with one another. I was hoping we were going to see that this afternoon. Okay, but we'll sit here for a little bit longer, but then I'm going to have to race on home. So off we go back to Tristan. I believe he was telling big stories.
Indeed, Taylor, we were in the midst of a story when fate struck us and everything went off, so who knows what sign that is. But anyway, so what I had forgotten to mention, I don't know how far I'd gotten. Where was I, Faith? You'll know because you were watching what was going on. I rambled on afterwards, so who knows how far I was. Okay, so she had taken the 2 cups of coffee to the room, going back to the morning meeting, and, well, Taylor was being sassy. She was giving everyone a hard time, and lots of verbal kind of diarrhea from Taylor McCurdy, and she had a lot to say, and she took 2 steps, which resulted in a rather funny little tumble that she took. So she ended up going down the steps, and on the last step somehow managed to cave her foot in and ended up falling into the soft sand in front of her room. Now, the problem with falling in the soft sand is not because you're going to get hurt, but it's because when you're carrying 2 coffee cups, things go a little awry. And so what happened was Taylor was busy giving somebody trouble, and as she landed, Karma instantly scorned her, and she landed with both her elbows hitting the sand like this. Now, as she hit the sand, the reflex was to bounce back up, and she smashed 2 cups of coffee, the liquid at least, not the cups themselves, into her face, and she had coffee all over her eyes and her face, into which she started to go into a fit of hysteria of both laughing and feeling sorry for herself, and there was just coffee all over her face, and she was crying with laughter by the end of it and couldn't actually even speak. It was absolutely hilarious to watch because, like I say, it was instant karma. Luckily the coffee wasn't too hot and didn't actually seriously burn her, because that was our first worry, so we all ran there, and then she was laughing, and which reduced her into tears, and that was then the trigger for everybody else to laugh. It was very, very funny to watch her kind of fall and to watch her have instant karma, and much like it was for me to fall out of a car. Quite funny as well. But it was a Taylor McCurdy special. In fact, those of you that has seen her fall in the mud from Kenya, that you can envision, but with 2 cups of coffee going to the eyeballs as she did it. So that was pretty much Taylor's fall, and so she is a little clumsy, but at least she had the elegant grace to get up and laugh about it. Anyway, now while I carry on, I believe I must send you to somebody. I have no idea who. I was too busy thinking in my mind and had that visual of Taylor falling, and so I'm pretty sure, I think it's James with Hosanna, but well, you'll soon find out.
Yes, it is, Tristan, well done. Yes, the thought of Taylor can be quite distracting when she's falling on her face in the mud. Absolutely indeed. Here we are, of course, with the elephants. An elephant herd that is just probably finished drinking at Beefle's Hook Waterhole. And they're just feeding gently through the woodlands here as the breezy afternoon draws to a close and we head towards the evening. It's very special to be in here, in amongst these herds. Very pleasant light, very nice sounds. There's not something wrong with me, everybody. I'm just letting you hear the sounds, that's all. Sherlock, it really depends on where you are in each location. So the vegetation type in this particular area is known as woodland, or we call it, what do we call it? Yeah, it's just called wood. It's mixed combretum woodland, mixed red bush willow or Combretum apiculatum woodland, whereas in the Mara you have something called savanna, basically, and it's red oatgrass grasslands and savanna. And so you'll find that the vegetation here is much thicker, and there it is much more open. Now that's very interesting, the reasons for why the two should look different. Obviously there's an underlying geological difference there, or certainly an underlying soil difference. There, much more recent volcanic activity. Of course, the Maasai Mara sits between the Central Rift Valley and the Great Rift Valley, at least the Western Rift Valley and the Great Rift Valley, I think that's how it's said. And so there's a huge amount of tectonic activity that's taken place in that part of Africa relatively recently. This particular area is almost devoid of any tectonic activity, or has been devoid of tectonic activity for a very, very long time. There's another one coming across the road there. And that means that the soils are very poor. They're not as rich as those in the Maasai Mara. Also, what's very interesting is that that particular area, the Mara Serengeti ecosystem, has been inhabited by human beings for a very long time. And without delving too deeply into the details, the fact that it is so open has a lot to do with human presence, and humans chopping wood for homes, chopping wood for smelting iron. That makes a big difference to the amount of wood there is in an area where people live. And also it has to do with elephants and the amount of elephants that there have been in that area. So it's a very fascinating human ecosystem, really, because humanity in the Maasai Mara have played a massive role in its current state, which of course they have in this particular area as well, but not nearly to the same extent, I don't think, that they have in the Maasai Mara. Most of the human effect here has been an attempt at conservation. In many instances it's probably had a more deleterious effect on biodiversity than the presence of local people in the Mara Serengeti ecosystem over the last few hundred years. I find the sort of nexus, I suppose, between humanity and wilderness a very fascinating one, and that particularly is very interesting to me. Yeah, I like how quiet elephants are too. It makes me feel really at peace just being around them. Of course, if they're chasing you, you don't feel so at peace, but these ones don't appear to want to chase us. They appear to be very comfortable with our presence, and that's just because their experience of human beings and vehicles, much like that leopard's earlier on, is a positive one in general. Alrighty, let's move up the road. We might get one more view. We might also lose signal up here, Faith, so just be aware. I'm amazed we've actually done a sighting here without losing signal. That's great. And just see if we can get another view. Small herd, seems to be only 5 or 6 of them. And then we'll head off to the waterhole. Alrighty, we're going to sit with the elephants a little bit longer. Let's go off to Tristan, who's driving and looking, apparently.
I am driving, James. Unlike you, I've had very little luck today, and so I haven't seen a single thing really. It's been dire, actually. We've had a few impalas, a little steenbok, some zebras to start, but since, well, that's about it really. So it's not been the best of afternoons for David and myself, but that can all change in a heartbeat. And so we're right up now where the wild dogs should theoretically come out, apparently. So Romit, to be honest with you, yes, I've seen leopards both in Djuma and the Mara, but the leopards that I saw in the Mara, I didn't get to witness them hunting, to be honest. And so any differences between their hunting strategies and there and here, I'm not really in a position to make a great judgment. What I will tell you though is that some of the leopards I saw that had carcasses were carcasses of Tommies, so little Thompson gazelles, and right out in the open. So obviously what they were doing was they were using long grass in the open plains, and they were just leopard crawling and then sitting in wait, and as the Tommies would come past they would grab them. So I mean, it's a very similar ambush tactic that they would use here, except here they use more thickets and bush, whereas there it seems like they were using more of grassland than anything else. They also do hang around the river, and they use the undulating bank of the river, and as animals come up over the banks they then get them like that. But it's I didn't see them hunting enough to draw too many comparisons, to be honest with you. As much as I saw them, I saw a lot of leopard while I was there, much more than I thought I would see, and there are a lot of leopard in the Mara. The unfortunate problem is a lot of them are very shy, so generally all you're seeing is a leopard in a tree, the leopard descending the tree and into the grass, and that's the end of it. Let's also remember when I was there that it was very, very wet and the grass was very tall, and so almost impossible to follow any sort of leopards. They would just disappear in 2 minutes, and that would be the end of that. And so, you know, we didn't really get that lucky with any hunting. They only saw... Well, actually, I saw 5 different leopards with kills in trees, but none of them really stuck around for very long, and I didn't actually see the hunting taking place, so I wasn't really lucky enough to get any of that. But I would imagine the idea, though, is pretty similar. It's just the terrain is slightly different. It's still nice to see a leopard, no matter where it is, though, and I would have loved to have seen them hunting more. I think if I'd spent more time on the rivers, maybe where Taylor's spending a lot of time down in the south of the triangle along the river there around the Maji Machafu drainage and BBC Lugger, that's an area where you'll get, there's 2 leopards around there, 2 females that are quite relaxed, and some of them even have cubs, so that'll be a good place to hang out. Maybe Taylor will get lucky and get a leopard hunt at some point, and she can weigh in on the argument and on the discussion. I suppose not an argument, but more a discussion. Now, I'm driving in this area because where we are right now, directly, in fact, as we are right now, directly to our west would be where those wild dogs were left today and this morning, where they were sleeping. And so I'm just driving along slowly here, just in case the doggies have woken up and decided to move. It's really, the temperature has dropped off quite nicely now. It's a really pleasant temperature. The light is at a nice oblique angle, which is perfect for wild dog hunting, and so they normally wake up around this time to start getting going. So I'm hoping that I'll get lucky now with the doggies coming over, because Tingana's eluded us, Hosana's with James, and well, I haven't found any signs of anybody else. Good. Anyway, round to Triple M, see if any sign of the dogs there. While I do that, let's send you back across to Scotty, who's, well, doing what I'm doing and is also having a bit of a tough afternoon in terms of looking for his cat predators.
Well, sorry, Tristan, sounds like you having a tough time finding some animals. We are also having a tough time, but we've got some exciting prospects. We found some more tracks of the sausage tree pride, and basically from the area where Brent left them yesterday evening, relative to where the tracks were this morning, has given us a good idea that they are heading almost directly west. And of course, it's impossible to know if they're going to continue on that trajectory, but they'd probably moved about 2 miles straight west to where we found their tracks on the road. They followed the road for a little bit north, and then they continued west. So I'm just scanning carefully here. We are kind of looking out towards the west. That's what that bright ball of light is doing there out in the west, the sun. So just stopping and scanning using the binoculars, hoping to find a lion poking its head out of this long grass, but no joy just yet. If we don't have any luck here, I'm probably going to try and get us over that little ridge where you can see that tree on the horizon there. It drops down into quite a big valley, and that is an area where the sausage tree ladies were spending quite a lot of time before they decided to move a little bit further east, back into their usual territory. So some work cut out for us, but looking forward to the prospects that lie ahead. It's also getting to that stage of the evening now where we can expect to hear lions roaring, which obviously helps you finding them. So looking forward to it. James and I are going to spend a couple of hours out. We're not going to do an all-nighter. Most of our battery packs are pretty depleted at the moment. So we are going to just spend a few hours out after dark, hoping to get some action. I think it was Evan who just asked if we ever get wildfires here. Yes, I'm almost certain that there are fires that are caused by lightning strikes. Patang! I guess that's the main natural form of fire being created. But here in the Mara Triangle, they do kind of controlled, regulated burns of certain areas. How exactly they do it, I'm not too sure, but I think they've got probably maybe a 4 or a 5 year cycle where they burn about 20% of the reserve each year, and then in 4 years' time that area will get burnt again. And it is a very important part of nature in most ecosystems, because it will clean out all the dead grass and all the stuff that's no longer useful to most animals and make space for new life. So of course, sadly, a lot of animals will die along the way, but again, those will provide meals to other animals, and it's part of the process. I guess a reason or a thing that a lot of you will be asking is, why do we need to come in or humans have to come in and try and regulate and do these control burns? And I guess it's mainly because surrounding wilderness areas there's kind of urbanization. So if there was a lightning strike outside of the reserve that would ordinarily burn into the reserve, that doesn't happen anymore. So I think there is a good reason for it. Marvelous. We are going to continue swooping and searching for the lions and send you back down to James.
We've just got to Beefle's Hook Waterhole, and there is a nyala who's just been drinking. Sorry for the shake of the car, that's my fault. I let go of the brake, silly me. Beautiful nyala bull here. Got a little bit of a fright when we arrived. We did pass another herd of elephants that had very clearly been drinking here, but it's not here anymore. Please excuse the aerials. I didn't really want to move and frighten the nyala. We had quite an interesting experience with one of the elephant cows. Very unlike I've seen for a long time. She came and she really gave us a kind of get out of the way, which was very strange. But we did. We just got out the way. Chico, what was that about new about rain and where animals hide? I'm sorry, I missed it. Chico, animals don't hide during heavy rain. They can't really. I suppose they go into thick bush and they'll try and get away from the rain in thick bush, but eventually they just come out and deal with it. It's quite interesting to watch. We're just looking for a bird there. There we go. We've got a birch or starling. So Chico, what they do is they will go into thick bush, especially if it's been a hot day or something, and then they'll huddle around there and stay inside the bushes for as long as they can. Eventually they get wet anyway, and eventually they have to get out and do what they need to do, find food, mark territory, whatever else they need to do. They just ignore the rain and come out. Very seldom do we have rain that lasts for very long here. So we'll have a big thunderstorm come in, it'll blast away, can drop sometimes up to 100 millimeters in a go. But that won't sort of affect animals for too long, because it'll be dumped in the space of sort of half an hour to 45 minutes, and then it'll go away again. So we don't get a huge amount of water here, Chiku. About 600 millimeters, between 500 and 600 millimeters a year, which is almost 24 inches in a good year. Little birch or starling, look for the odd ant or termite, still out for the day, still doing a bit of foraging, and then it will go off and find a roosting spot in a tree and go to sleep for the evening, which I'm sure it will enjoy. Alrighty, our plan from here is probably to go on to the eastern boundary and drive down there and see if we can't perhaps find some sign of Thandi and Tlalamba. Thandi and Tlalamba, of course, two leopards. One, the mother, 12 years old, our queen, and the other, the latest princess. She's 10 months old now, I think. Is she? November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August. Yes, she's 10 months this month. Gosh, time flies. They do grow up very quickly. In case you are wondering, she killed a little steenbok on Torchwood, which is the reserve to the east of us, yesterday I think it was. She would have devoured it and finished it in seconds, and I don't think she's come back yet. And interestingly, she did not have it stolen by Tingana, who's been doing quite a lot of pilfering of late. Keep an eye out for some tracks as we go. Oh, Magic Dragon Wizard, only on the day that somebody sees those cubs, basically, we can guess whether she's pregnant or not from the heaviness of her belly after about 2 months, I suppose. You might be able to see a little bit of swelling there. The gestation period is just over 3 months, but, you know, she could have just had a big meal, so it's be very difficult to tell if she is or isn't pregnant. And then we can tell if she's got cubs by suckle marks, and of course seeing the cubs, but you know, so many of these cubs are so very vulnerable that whether or not she'll keep that first litter or not, we don't know. The only really definitive way to tell whether or not a leopard cub is in existence is to see it. There was a little slender mongoose that ran across the road there. I'm not sure if it managed to make it onto screen or not. Now there's quite a nice little nest of squirrels up here that I quite like to visit from time to time. Let's see if they're around. I think it's here. Don't tell me it's this tree that's just been pushed over. Is it? Oh, that's not good news. I think that's it there, everybody. Oh, how dreadful. This is deeply distressing. I think the August winds have blown over my favourite squirrel nest. Yes, I think this is it. Oh, well, you can see why it was a good squirrel's nest. You can see that the heartwood is being eaten out by fungus, this bracket fungus, for example. That will make it soft inside, and it will mean that wood borers like barbets and woodpeckers will be able to open up holes that squirrels will then excavate further and live inside. No more on this tree, I'm afraid, because unfortunately the August winds seem to have blown it clean over. Oh well, it's a bit sad, you know. I suppose one shouldn't get sad about these things, they're all part of nature, really. Nature can be quite sad, though. Nature is not always a warm and fluffy experience, is it? Yeah. On we go. Yes, it is a great pity about my tree, Faith, thank you. It's more pity for the poor old squirrels who now have to find somewhere else to live. Not much, Cenac. I suppose... What feeds on dead trees? So termites, obviously, as you said. Wood borer beetles, so longhorn beetle larvae will eat dead wood, I think. Fungus, not an animal, of course. So fungus can eat it. Fungus, of course, one of the few organisms that is able, or one of the few kinds of organisms that are able to digest wood. But that's probably about it, you know. Just the wood borers, the termites, and the fungus. Did you know, and this will be quite interesting to you, the next time you go outside and you see a mushroom growing out of the ground next to, or perhaps in amongst some grass, think to yourself, can you see what I can see? There is the world's stupidest animal. Right there, everybody. That is the animal with the lowest IQ in all the world. There is no animal more dumb than that bunny sitting on the road there. How you have got to that age is utterly beyond me. It thinks we can't see it. I can see you. You're not even vaguely disguised. Shame, I now feel a bit bad, but really, that is a deeply gormless creature. Oh, gosh. I mean, that's ridiculous. Well, Mayor Bear, I'm very glad you like watching this. We like producing it for you, so thank you very much for enjoying the show that we're delivering. That is a scrub hare, for those of you who don't know. Other than being the stupidest animal in the world, it is a scrub hare. While we look at the stupidest animal in the world, I wanted to tell you, of course, that the next time you go outside, you find a mushroom growing out of a tuft of grass. Bear in mind that you are more closely related to that mushroom than you are to the grass next to it. Is that not interesting? The kingdom Animalia is more closely related to the kingdom of the fungus than it is to the kingdom of the plants. So, spare a thought for the fungus the next time you eat it. I think Gremlins General, the scrub hare is probably offended, except that I think it's too gormless to be offended. I think it realizes that something is amiss, but its brain is working at such an incredibly slow rate that it's not able to compute what is amiss exactly. And for it to have got to adulthood like it has is countless serendipitous coincidences must have happened for it to have got to this age and not walked into a predator. I mean, they're not generally known for their intelligence, these things. My goodness, this one's a new level. We are not sitting more than 3 meters from it. No, Tussle, that's a piece of wood. It's not a dead scrub hare, or it wouldn't be beyond this fellow to think that he was sitting next to a dead scrub hare, or indeed a living one. He's probably talking to it now. There's someone in front of us, George. Don't move, George. I don't think they've seen us, George. Just sit still. George can't move, you cretin. He's a piece of wood. What shall we call him? Bertie. I think that's a good one. Bertie the bunny. Well, one would hope about 60 IQ points, Sam. The difference between rabbits and hares is actually one of the first things you learn as a guide. So I can tell you. The difference between a rabbit and a hare is that a hare is largely nocturnal. This one is supposed to be asleep in a form, so they don't dig burrows. Hares, they live in forms which are supposed to be, I mean, this is the worst example of a hare you'll ever see. They're supposed to be sort of bushy, secluded nests, so thick, underneath thick bush or in some very thick grass, not out in the open like that where any bird of prey worth salt would be able to take it. So they're nocturnal, they live in forms, they run rather than hop. Rabbits hop, and they live in burrows, and they are diurnal by and large, not always, but by and large. And then the big difference is their babies. A young hare leveret, that's what we call young rabbits or hares, is born almost completely independent. It's a little bit like an antelope when it's born. So it's born with its eyes open, it's got teeth, it can run straight away. Whereas a rabbit, because it's born down in a burrow, is helpless. It's blind, a little bit like a predator baby, I guess. I get the feeling he thinks he's being insulted but isn't quite sure. Chiranjeevi, I believe they do bite there. I'm sure if you tried to catch one, or if you did catch one, I think it would probably start to... They scream and they would start to bite too. Just about all animals out here, if you catch them, will try and bite you. It's one of the most powerful weapons, of course, most animals have. It will probably also kick with its rather powerful back legs. But other than that, speed is their great defense. They are very, very fast. And many times have we seen Hosanna trying to stalk and catch a scrub hare and fail. This one, however, he could not fail to catch. If Hosanna comes across this scrub hare, he will have himself a small meal. I mean, I nearly ran over him. I've never seen this before. In all my years out here, I've never seen a scrub hare lying in the road like this. Anyway, I'm being very insulting, of course. He's probably not the stupidest scrub hare in the world. He could be the stupidest scrub hare in the world, but that's not to say that most scrub hares are particularly intellectually brilliant. Shall we see what happens if we drive past him? Let's see how close we can get, and then we'll go across to Tristan. We're stalking you. That's it. There you are. Well done. Now stay under that bush. You'll be much safer there. There he is. He's still under there. That's where he should have been to start with. That's it, middle of the picture. Well done. Yes, that's a form. You'd make a form in there, fellow. Alrighty, let's go across to Tristan, who I believe hasn't had any further luck. If he's anywhere near Horsana, I think there's probably some space there. He can go there.
Just a tree here. Now, we haven't had any further luck. We're now clutching at straws and looking upon broken tree branches that we thought might be a leopard up in the tree, but alas, it is not, unfortunately. I thought maybe, just maybe, Shedulu, that might be up there, and it just unfortunately wasn't. It was just a broken tree branch, which I think has caught me before. Now, James is saying that I can go to Osana if I like because there's probably space. No, it's okay, James. I'm going to carry on because patience is rewarded, and I'm hoping that if I just keep going, I'll find something somewhere close by where I can, maybe get something different for this afternoon. So we're going to try. I don't want to snub Horsana, but it's just that I feel like if we just play out our patience, good things will come to us, and it's the right time of day to be driving around. And given that nobody has found any tracks for Shedulu leaving this block, I wonder if she doesn't have a kill somewhere here. So I'm just trying to scan all the big marulas in the hope that we'll see some little legs dangling from one of these marulas, and that we can be able to either spot her or a carcass. That's what I'm hoping. I don't see any signs. I know there's a lot of cars that have driven around here, so they could have squashed the tracks, but there's nothing really going towards Triple M. I checked the other side, and I mean, she could have easily crossed on a hard section and I missed it, but I didn't really pick up anything. Normally with her, she likes to get onto a road and just kind of walk along. The only time she'll cross a road very quickly is if there might have been a prey animal that she was hunting. Alyssa, no recent updates on Tumba, I'm afraid, which is a bit sad. I always like to hear about how he's doing, but he has apparently not been seen much over the last few weeks. I think the last update we got was about 2 weeks ago, unfortunately. So I don't know where he is at the moment. I think he's just fine. I'm going to go with that. He's on Ottawa somewhere and he's just fine. It's one of those things. Ottawa is not a very well traversed property, and so leopards can get in there and hide away quite easily. So I think that's where he's spending a lot of his time and is taking it easy in that area. I hope we get an update on him soon. I think the last photo I saw though was somewhere on Londolozi, I think. I'm not 100% sure. I know he was seen on EP as well, on Elephant Plains at an area called Cryness, which is just off their airstrip. So he could be around that section. It's obviously difficult to know exactly where he is unless people start taking photos of him. Now, okay, those are tracks from the Nkuhuma Pride the other day when we found them, which is not what we're looking for right now. The Nkuhuma Pride, incidentally enough, are still up in Manyeleti on that buffalo kill. They came and drank at Jordan's Dam this morning, which is in Buffelshoek, and then went back into the Manyeleti, so they're still on that side of the world. And I'm sure we'll probably head southwards this evening. Now, whether they come into our area and stay here or if they cross into the west, I'm not quite sure. It's going to be interesting to see which way they go. Oh, come on animals, out you come. We need to see some sort of sign before we can follow up. Now, I'm quite sad that Tingana went south. I was hoping he was going to be lying down in the shade close to Treehouse Dam, but I think he went to Little Gowrie and probably lying at their Treehouse Dam because they've got a treehouse as well, and Ellie's that crossed at Twin Dams, I'm pretty sure, went there as well. So David's not too much sign of Tingana pushing west. Hukamuri seems to have gone quite far west, and you would think that maybe, just maybe, Tingana would have gone more west. Although I suppose his tracks at Treehouse Dam do indicate that maybe, just maybe, he is heading more west than he has. Now, there's just a kind of big lump in a tree. You see it there, David, in the horizon. Is that it? No, a little bit more to the back. And there we go, a little bit to the right there. What is that in the tree? Nope, that's just a branch. So those are the kind of things we're looking for, is maybe a lump like that. Sometimes you can spot those and then you can see little legs dangling or something that gives you it away. So that's what we're kind of looking for as we're driving along, in the hope that Shadulu might have a kill somewhere here. I mean, yesterday James is adamant that there were no tracks coming out of this block, and so she must be still here somewhere. Maybe, I don't know. But Tingana pushing west. I suppose Treehouse is the furthest west we've seen him go. I haven't seen him go to Treehouse in quite some time, so it's a good sign that he's heading there. The ultimate sign will be if he goes on to Triple M like he used to, and even into Arathusa. We used to see Tingana crossing into Arathusa quite regularly. But I'm quite happy that he's not, to be honest, because it means that we're seeing him a lot more on this side, and it means that he's not risking too much by going too far west too quickly and having to then engage with Hukumuri. As you know, it's nice when there's a little kind of stable balance where he's kind of spending most of his time on the side and Hukumuri most of his time on that side, and then they're actually not really going to engage in too much. So it's actually not bad that we're not seeing him push too far. It's getting to that awkward time now, though, where spotting is becoming quite hard, actually. Chad, yes, Quarantine is still alive. He was seen about 2 days ago, I think, or a day ago. He's been seen on Nkoro quite a bit, Cheetah Plains, Torchwood. They've heard him calling there and they've seen him there. So he's around. He's also doing his thing and has fathered a cub with, well, as far as we know, with Nkanyeni. No, we don't know for sure, obviously, when it comes to dads fathering cubs, but it seems as though he has fathered that cub with Nkanyeni, who's doing quite well. Apparently he's about 6-7 months old. I mean, I don't know for sure. I wasn't in that area for long enough to know if... Well, I also don't... I've only seen that cub once, so I would no idea actually when that little cub was born. But it's apparently 6-7 months old is what they're telling me. I feel like it when I saw the cub that it looked a little bit bigger than that, but I might be wrong. You never know. Sometimes these things happen, but with Nkanyeni, generally her cubs are quite small, so I'd be quite surprised if it was her cub. Alright, well, no sign of any Shadulu or kill up in a tree that I can see. It's not to say that there isn't a carcass somewhere here. I'm going to try, though, what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to go down to Philemon's, and then I'm going to cut along Philemon's and then up north on Zoe's again, just in case I miss something. And from there, then I'm very unsure as to where I'm going to go. I'm going to hope that by the time I get to Birdsell Access, there'll be 2 wild dogs running down the road. That's what I'm going to hope for, because I don't really know where else to go. We've covered pretty much most of Djuma this afternoon, from Buffelshoek Dam to Twin Dams to all the way up on the Gowrie Gate area. It's pretty much the length and breadth of Vuyatela at this stage. So Joy, yes, there are aardwolf that are around here. I've personally not seen one. In fact, I know very few people that have seen one, but one was seen on an Nkoro recently, which is pretty amazing. So they are around, and just I think so shy and reclusive. That's not seen often, and also I don't think there's very many of them, to be honest. It's not really the right place for them. They find that they spend more time in arid sections, so if you go into the Kalahari Desert, quite a few of them that side, but this side very, very, very few. And I only know of that one that's been seen on Nkoro. It's actually been seen twice on Nkoro, funnily enough, but I don't know anywhere else where aardwolves have been seen. Interestingly enough, yesterday, was it yesterday? Or the day before? Can't remember. Anyway, doesn't really matter which day it was. But a spring hare was seen on Londolozi, which James might find interesting, given he worked at Londo's. But a spring hare is not to be confused with a scrub hare. It's a very different animal. A spring hare is like a little orange squirrel crossed with a scrub hare that bounds around at night, and I don't know of any spring hares being seen, and certainly the first one I've heard about since I've been working here. And interesting. I don't know where it would have come from. You see them quite a lot when you go north in the Kruger up towards Olifants, which is a camp in the Kruger, Letaba, the north side. Then you find a lot of them. But down here, never have I seen a spring hare. So that's quite a cool thing to have been seen by the guides there. Right, now talking about James on Londolozi, I wonder what he thinks about the spring hare appearing on his old stomping ground.
Well, I think that it's very interesting indeed that there was a spring hare seen at Londolozi. I've never seen one that far south. That, of course, is not a spring hare that you're looking at. That is a buffalo. And it's a buffalo. I'm going to describe it to you because you haven't seen one for so very long that you may well have thought that it was a spring hare. But that is a buffalo. And it is a breeding herd of buffalo, no less, sitting on Torchwood. We're not on Torchwood. We're just on the boundary between Torchwood and Djuma. And there's a large herd of buffalo. Probably about 100 strong, I'd say. I don't doubt that tonight, with a very little moon and a bit of a breeze, that lions could well be on their tail. Isn't it nice to see a buffalo again? Marvellous. And I don't know why we haven't, well, I do sort of know why we haven't seen many of them for long, and that's because, of course, the drought wiped them out to a large extent in this area, and they haven't come back until relatively recently. Chewing away at their dry grass. No, my safarian were in exactly the right area for that honey badger that we saw a little while back. I haven't seen him again, or her again. In case you're wondering, everybody, we had 2 wonderful honey badger sightings, but the best one was we drove, Seb and I sat with him for about half an hour, and he paid us almost no heed at all, just carried on fossicking about, looking grumpy, and every so often looking at us and snarling and then carrying on. It was very special indeed to have a honey badger in such close proximity for so long. Everybody, I'm a little disappointed by the reaction to my buffalo herd. I feel like you all should be leaping up and down and whooping with joy that the buffalo have come back. Now, you may not like buffalo very much, but I promise you now, if these buffalo spend any time on Djuma, I can assure you that there is going to be a lot more lion activity. So, even if buffalo are not your cup of tea, if lions are, this should result in your feeling great sense of anticipation and joy. Well, Megan, there we have it. Cape buffalo, you say, are great animals. Well, yes, I think they're pretty impressive. And bull's pretty impressive. He doesn't have the face of Hosanna the leopard, the grace of Tundi the leopard. But he's certainly got something about him. Doesn't have quite the friendly sound or friendly look about him that the elephants do, or the regal look of the lion, or even the ancient look of the rhino, but he has something. Aston, I have very, very seldom had any kind of aggressive reaction from a buffalo in a vehicle. Almost universally they've turned and run away from me if I've got too close to them. I have had one incident where a buffalo hit the back of my car, and that's just because it was being chased by lions, and I think it was either deferred anger or it wanted me to get out of the way, one of the two. I have seen buffalo charge cars, but it's very, very unusual. So really, I mean, it's so difficult to say what I would do in the face of an aggressive buffalo charge at the car because it would be so rare. I'd probably just drive away. But that buffalo is showing absolutely zero aggressive intent whatsoever. On foot they are very different. On foot you need to be careful. Not so much with a herd like this, because the herd will almost universally turn tail and run if they smell you. But a bull on his own or a couple of bulls together can get their blood up quite quickly, and they can become quite nasty. But a lot of the time they'll do nothing, they'll just watch you walk by. But we had an incident the other day, or much more than the other day, about 2 years ago, where Steph and I were walking with, I think, who was on camera? I think it was Brian. Brian was still with us. And we'd had those 6 buffalo bulls at the Pan, where the nest cam is now, and they'd been there for ages, months. Walked past them 100 times, always keeping our distance. And we walked past at about 150 meters that one day, and they all got up out of the Pan, formed a phalanx and started walking towards us, and then they started trotting towards us. And so we had to back off at quite a speed. It's very unusual. And I mean, I've been very close to buffalo by mistake. I've walked past them, within 4 feet. And they've just sat there and munched away on their cud. So they are not, by default, very dangerous. But you do hear stories of people getting gored by them. The most famous one lately, of course, was Beverly Joubert, who's a very, very famous part of the Joubert filmmaking duo. They've done a lot of stuff for National Geographic over the years, and with all her experience in the bush, she was hit one night. Had a dreadful time, and in fact was very lucky to survive. Has survived, has come back. She's absolutely fine now, I think. But, they can be a little bit on the testy side. Not sure exactly the circumstances of how Beverly Joubert was hit by the buffalo, but it was at night, and it was in camp. So perhaps the buffalo just felt cornered. She probably just came round a corner or shone her torch the other way for some reason, and she got hit, poor lady, but she's okay now. Alright, we're going to probably head on away from here. I think Tristan may be going to Hosana, I'm not very sure. But we are on the far eastern boundary. We're going to start heading back towards the middle.
No, James, we are gazing upon a beautiful sunset at the moment at our favourite vulture nest. Our only vulture nest at this stage. So we only know of the one there. It is there in the trees itself. And it's sitting atop its nest. It's quite difficult to see it. Just now it was sitting nice and upright, so it's giving us a beautiful silhouette. But now it's kind of tucked down for the evening as I suppose the cold starts to come in. So you can just see the top of its back there, its wings and its head as it sits on top. Now, I wonder, David, can we see it with the thermal or not? That's quite interesting. It doesn't pick up this vulture on the nest in the thermal, which I'll show you now. David's just doing some setting changes to try and see if he can pick it up, but it really doesn't pick it up easily at all, which is quite amazing to me. So David is trying to actually get it right, but it's okay, David, you can show it like that, because that's quite interesting that you actually can't see any sign of it. So Faith, if we can go to the flare so that we can have a little look at it. But basically, if we go on to that thermal image, you'll see that the tree is all kind of a light purple coloration against a very dark black sky. And the nest is on the top third, I would imagine, of that image. And there really is no discernible heat signature for that vulture. It's probably because the sticks are blocking it a little bit, and those sticks are probably quite warm after a warm afternoon. But I would have thought that vulture head would have glowed like a little beacon on top. You can see the head there. It's just sticking up out of the nest. But that's really quite strange. I would have thought we would have seen a lot more. We know that obviously birds have feathers that insulate, but remember that a vulture has a featherless head, so its head should be glowing out of the top of that nest, which it's not, which is quite interesting. So quite strange. I didn't think we would see it like that. I would have thought we would have had some view of that bird and the heat that it was giving off. Anyway, it's okay. Now you can see that on our regular picture, it is a gorgeous evening. We've got the wind that is settling down, beautiful light that is kind of streaking across that western horizon. It's a very, very pretty picture this evening. And so, not a bad place to have a nest. It's like a millionaire apartment with a view to kill across the western side of the Sabi Sand. So really not too bad if you're a vulture. It's a good place to have a nest. In fact, if you wanted an apartment, that would be a good place to have a nest. Well, Rosalind, I suppose we might as well stop since we're talking about vultures. I'm going to try to see if I can get a slightly better view of it and see if we can just get some feathers maybe a little bit easier. But Rosalind, when they are on a carcass, vultures can be extremely loud. You hear them squawking and going crazy and bickering and fighting from quite a long way away. It's actually often how we find kills, is by listening to vultures. There you can see its head's turned towards us, and so we do hear them quite a lot. When they're on nests like this, you won't hear them at all. I very seldom hear them. You hear the Cape vultures when they nest on cliff faces. You often hear them squawking, and the sound does carry much further than you would actually think, which is pretty amazing. So they are quite loud birds, louder than one would think, that's for sure. You can see this one's just giving us a little look out the corner of its eye. I wonder how far those eggs are, or if those little chicks have hatched yet. Still quiet up there, so I don't know if the little chicks are there, because the chicks will make a bit of noise. I think she's still incubating. Remember, they incubate for a long time. 44 days is rather long, and so normally you lay their eggs in July, which means I suppose they should have maybe hatched by now. It would be interesting to know. I think maybe we need a nest cam up there, although I would never climb that tree to go up and put a nest cam there. It's just, one, would disturb that vulture too much. Two, I wouldn't want to be up there if a vulture comes back and little chicks are there, because that thing has serious beak and claws and will do some damage to you, that's for sure. So I wouldn't want to play around too much at all up there. Anyway, very nice. I hope that our vulture has a nice settled evening on top of its nest. Sherlock, well, given your name, I think we're going to have to ask you that question, and you'll have to find out for us. No, I'm joking. I honestly have no idea. It's, again, one of those things that is completely dependable on the day. Do we have a carcass here? Do we not? Vultures will come in and out, being birds that range long distances. Very difficult to say how many we've got on Djuma at any one time. What I will tell you is that in terms of nests, this is the only nest we know about. So these two are guaranteed, but I don't know how many vultures spend time. Like I say, if we have a big carcass, when we had the elephant carcass, our vulture numbers would have spiked through the roof and gone well over 100. But when there's no elephant carcass like now, very few vultures that actually spend time on Djuma itself. They transient, they'll kind of fly over looking for carcasses, and so you'll see a lot of vultures in a day, but you probably won't actually visibly kind of get lots of them sitting and nesting in this area. There's not as many nests as I would have thought. I thought we would have had a nest on the Mulwati, but I haven't found one yet. But pretty sure at some stage they will nest there. Now, while I've been sitting here, I was just thinking to myself that just here in front of me, you'll see that there's a termite mound. So on that termite mound over there is the last time I saw an aardvark, funnily enough. And many of you might be wondering, but hang on a second, we didn't see it on a live drive. No, you wouldn't have. We had a drive, and then we stopped for the evening, and we had a little function at the junction. Now, the function at the junction is where often the rangers will get together to have a bit of a social interaction, and we came down the road here with Jerry and Alicia and Nikki, I believe, was in the car, and I decided, well, I'll just jump in with the girls because they were the first ones to leave. And so I jumped in, and as we came down the road here, an aardvark came running across from this tree and then across this little open section up onto the mound and sat there for about 5 minutes. So we had about a 5-minute view of an aardvark. It was pretty spectacular, and we were parked really close to that termite mound, and it kind of came up and looked at us for a while, these big ears and this big nose, watched, and then ran down and off into the grass. So maybe there's an aardvark still hanging around. Maybe we'll get lucky this evening and spot one as we kind of drive around in front here. So we're going to leave our vulture. Don't want to disturb it. It's that time of the night where it's time to settle down, so we have to hush our voice and leave the vulture to itself and try and creep away. And while I try creep away, let's back across to James, who, well, is driving and looking for more animals.
I am driving for looking more animals. It is now time to take out my spotlight, which I don't seem to be able to find, actually. Let me keep looking. Anyway, here we are. What's that? It's there. You can see it, can you? Under my jacket. Sorry, everybody. Very disorganised of me. Should have had it out already. Craig has spotted it for me. Well done, Craig. Don't need those gloves anymore. Ah, here we go. There we go. We can now powerfully beam our spotlight into the bushes. There was a brief sighting of some wild dogs quite close by that we thought we might go to, but no, we're not going to get there, and it's getting dark, and of course we don't view them in the darkness. Some of you mentioning that there are a whole lot of cars at the dam, in front of the dam cam. I think they're all looking at Hosanna or waiting for him to emerge. So that's why there are cars there. Now, yes, question. Yes, Sinak, I have seen many porcupines in my time. Not many of them here, but I have seen many porcupines. They are fascinating creatures, of course. Africa's largest rodent. A lot of people don't realize that they are rodents, of course, but they are. And yeah, not very often have I seen them here. Often see their evidence, often see their diggings, their bitings on tambuti trees and that sort of thing. But no, I haven't seen a great number of them here. I guess, like many of the nocturnal creatures, they tend to be more common in dry areas for some reason. I think we just see them more in dry areas and less bushy areas. Fewer places for them to hide, and also less predator-dense areas. You'll find that areas like this, where there are as many leopards as there are, you'll find things stay pretty close to the ground when there are predators around. And yes, even porcupines will fall prey to predators from time to time. Porcupinos. We find their tracks quite a lot as well, so they are here. No, they don't alarm call through the night. Goodness gracious, look at that ahead of us. It's a giraffe. Patrick, they will not alarm call through the night, no, unless they are woken and attacked at night. But they sleep. Birds sleep much like we need to sleep, and probably even more soundly than something like a leopard sleeps. And so no, you won't find them alarm calling at night. Just going to try and ease past this giraffe bull. We'll turn on our lights. Hello. How are you? Good to see you. It's been a long time. You've got a squonk horn. I'm sorry about that. You can see he's not very symmetrical on the head there. Poor fellow. Like having one ear bigger than the other. First thing people will notice about you. Oh, there we go. So yes, I think the light does sometimes disturb the animals. We don't have it. There's no light on this giraffe now. It's just an infrared camera with an infrared light. And so he can't see that any more than you and I can see infrared. But if I was to blind him with a spotlight and the immense floodlighting capabilities of this car, you know, in this situation when he's eating and he's not cornered and he's fairly calm, no, I don't think it would freak him out. I'll do it. I'll turn on one light for you. There. No, it's not shining on him. So I'm prepared to shine on his backside. It's going to make no real difference to him. If I shone in his eyes, it would make a big difference. But it's just, you know, animals have a particular way of behaving at night, and they have that way of behaving because it's dark. And nocturnal animals operate in the darkness because that's when it's best for them to operate. And so to drive around shining too many lights on animals is really not a thing that we should try and do. And it's why every time a new piece of technology becomes available to us that allows us to have even less impact, then we do that. We use it. We make use of it. It's also the reason why Ronald the Rover, about whom we were asked on the morning safari, is retired. That's why he is no longer with us in the field, because the animals were just reacting to him, which is just not ideal. Yes, Yvette, alone or in small groups, quite often alone though. He's going after those tambuti buds, the same as the grey go-away birds. That's very interesting. He can't reach any because they've all been eaten off that tree. That's fascinating. Yvette, like most male mammals, giraffes like a bit of me time. It's very common in male mammals And they do spend a little bit of time with their friends from time to time, but often they're on their own. And he is one of those animals. He could be in visual contact with one or two others. Perhaps there is a little herd of females around, but often they are just on their own. So we're heading towards the last bit of the show, so I'm going to bid you farewell with my face now. And now we're going to go back to the animal for the last minute or so. That was me smiling at you, everybody, just so that you know we're live. Thank you very much, Faith. Faith said I had a nice smile there. It's very nice. Thank you, Faith. And this giraffe is now going to head off into this riverbed, I think, to find some more delicious tambuti buds to eat. Hopefully it will disappear as the end of the show comes and not before, because then we're going to have that awkward situation where Craig doesn't know, should he come back to me while the credits are rolling, should he just leave it on the bush, which doesn't look great. We're almost into that position now. Oh, there we go. That's going to be a perfect screen for the credits. The credits are now rolling, everybody, as you can see. Oh, you're going to come back to me. Oh, no, you're not. You're going to go to the moon. Very good. Okay, thank you for joining us. That's what I have to say to you, and I am truly grateful, because a live safari would be meaningless without all of your questions and comments. So thank you for joining us. We will see you again tomorrow morning at 06:30. Until then, bye-bye.